You'd be okay with people selling organs, but poor people wouldn't be allowed to then.
Now here's an interesting thought. Should we allow, with some regulations, the actual private sale of organs while you're still alive? Like, so for instance, how much does a kidney go for? 250. How many people in chat in DGG right now would unironically say, fuck it, I will sell my kidney. I'm a match for someone out there.
God damn it.
Should we do that?
Dude,
Probably.
I was unironically thinking about selling one of my balls. You can get 35K for that.
Wait a minute. This is the new Airbnb. Oh my god, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Has anyone done this yet? This is a fucking $1 billion idea right now.
Airbnb, but for balls.
No, not for balls, you fucking moron. For any body part, okay? Holy shit. We handle everything. We connect the buyers and the sellers in one convenient spot. We handle all the, we have all the medical information. Guys, we're taking investments right now. Why should this not be a thing? If I need a kidney, why can't I pay? Fuck poor people. I don't understand. Someone else wants to get paid out there. What's the problem with this?
No, we need to prioritize people.
Wait a
So
minute.
the counter argument, and then the counter argument. Right? The counter argument would be, well, if we do this, the people that are going to be selling their organs are most likely going to be poor people. So you're basically creating a market where mainly poor people are doing this. The counter argument to that is like, well, okay, well then things like prostitution should be illegal because chances are poor people are going to be gravitating towards those types of professions as well. Is that okay? But like selling organs isn't? Like, yeah. So you'd have to draw a distinction between those or something, I think.
So here's the legally interesting question here. Look, I wish Basquiat was here. So if you created a service, because it's legal for anyone. So right now, Steve, you could donate your kidney to me, right? Without payment, I guess. So would it be legal for a service to kind of facilitate these arrangements and connect people who want to find this stuff? That would be very interesting to see.
We could call it Kuber for kidneys.
Yeah.
See if there's a match in your area today.
Buy a gift at
Well,
basket,
we nice
and you get a free
me
organ.
Absolutely.
I'm running it down, guys. I got bored of this game. It's like 20 minutes ago. Prostitution can be safe, however, donating organs is always very dangerous. That's not true. There's a chance when you donate an organ that something horrible can go wrong. There's also a chance when you engage in prostitution that something can go horribly wrong. For a true fact, there's a chance that any time a woman engages in any type of sexual activity, a guy things go horribly wrong. So I mean,
wait, this is a real thing I need you to go into, by the way, because I've heard it extremely passionate on both sides. I don't think we've ever gotten into this really aggressively. Is prostitution and sex work.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a good thing to have it legal or not? So I think you know the arguments on both sides.
Yeah,
this is a very
okay. So
very
here are the. I'm a big person where my goal is, I always say, let's capitalize on the pros and minimize the cons. The pros and the cons of having sex work legal. The pros are that when it's legal, prostitutes can enjoy, or whatever you would call them, I don't know if they're so-called prostitutes or not, sex workers would enjoy some amount of legal protections. That they have the ability to get tested, they work in a place that's well regulated, that these types of protections exist, they can take legal action against bad clients, that this is a good thing. We would consider this to be a really good thing. However, I'm also aware that I'm fairly certain that any place where prostitution is legalized, sex trafficking increases because a new market opens up where it's legalized. You get a higher demand for sex workers. People start to traffic in young girls from other places in order to make more money. So so it should probably be legal, and we should probably find a way to cut down on sex trafficking. We should be aware of that. That would be my understanding.
Wouldn't the argument for that just necessarily be like proper regulations when it comes to like sex work, right? So like this sounds like so much more complicated than it might even have to be, but being able to like regularly like interview these girls, making sure that they have like I guess like proper credentials of like being from that place as well, like citizenship.
Yeah, that's what I just said, that you would regulate the sex trafficking more, and then you'd try to maintain the protections that you get while having it legal. Sure.
Yeah, okay, just making clear. I don't know if we're memeing or not about the organ stuff. Like, somebody clarify, because
I think that's a good idea, unironically. I think unironically this could help poor people to a certain extent. Why would this be bad? If you're poor and you have a good kidney...
That doesn't help you. You're just preying on poor people to sell
not.
your organs because they're living in a cycle of...
This is the same false logic that like hates Uber as a result of it. Like people are like, oh,
this
Uber's
is your
preying on poor
capitalist brain.
people. No,
Jesus
Uber's
Christ.
preying on poor people. Uber's saying, hey, if you want to drive, we can, and we'll pay you this. You are making that decision as a result of that. You're saying we
There
can't
is
even
a
present the offer to them?
There is going to be a significantly lower quality of life if
That's
you
why it's a high
give
payment.
away an organ.
Yeah, that's why it's a high payment.
Even what would exactly even be a proper payment? Because if you're poor, you might, depending on your circumstances, you might even do it for like 1K, right? If you're that desperate.
Well, no, there'd be like a market value for these things, right?
Yeah.
Well, but that's the thing. Like when it comes to like market valuation and stuff, in a perfect capitalist society, I would totally agree with you. But realistically speaking, when people are desperate for money, when people are thinking in the short term, when people just need
Well,
things
no.
immediately-
So the whole point of having a real actual market for this is there would be like a marketplace where there are currently people acting prices. Not like somebody's like, oh god, I need to sell a kidney. Who's the quickest buyer? Like there'd be like a literal app or website where you can see like who's offering how much for what kidneys, for what blood types or whatever.
And other data, like are they a smoker? How long have they been on the market? Other health stuff. And then then you can go and choose. And the fucking crackhead who is like all over the place, their kidney's not going to be worth much as a result. But the banker who's like, fuck it, I don't need 2 kidneys, but I'll sell one for $500K. Maybe someone will pay that much more as a premium because he knows that one's healthier, no drug use or anything along those lines.
I mean, you can also make a argument that I think almost any person, right, can't really like fully conceptualize what it means to like lose an organ.
That's not true because we allow people to make that decision when it comes to donating organs to family members already. We just don't let them do it for cash, right?
Well, yeah, because then it like incentivizes. Okay, yeah. But no, even then, even people who are giving out organs, I would also argue that they don't completely like understand the full impact it means to like lose an organ. However, they do understand the impact of like losing somebody close to them's life. And
that's not true. Come on, like. To fully understand, first of all, I'm pretty sure we can understand the impact of like losing a kidney. I don't think there is a massive impact here, right? And to fully understand the impact of losing like a loved one, I don't think that's something that's like easily quantifiable either, right?
Well, here's the thing. Like we can more clearly conceptualize like the loss of a loved one, right? Like we will not see them again ever. They're never going to have a presence in their life. Blah blah blah. They're gone forever.
Well, what are all these risks of like having only one kidney? What are all these things that we can't conceptualize?
There's specific detail. Like, should I pull out like a list of?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Because I might be ignorant. My understanding was that you can live with one kidney pretty decently. It doesn't really have a major impact on you, unless you have organ failure.
The reason
or something.
you have 2 kidneys is because one can act as backup if another one shuts down, right? So if you start having kidney problems,
yeah, sure.
Then the other one's backup. So if you don't have that backup, especially if you're poor and you don't have healthcare insurance, what the fuck are you gonna do?
I'm pretty sure it's not even just a backup. People who donate these kidneys suffer significant less quality of life. But give me a second so I can find all the effects.
That doesn't seem to be the case. You're gonna be fucked. So from what I'm reading here.
Well, we can just look at it. Look, health outcomes for people who donate kidneys. We can see if oh, whoops. Is kidney donation set kidney.org. Giving kidney to someone who needs a transplant is a very generous thing to do, but can it lead to kidney problems in the donor? Most people do not experience health problems as a result of donation. A large study of the long-term effects of kidney donation and good news. People donate kidneys. Doctors reported that living kidney donors can expect to live full, healthy lives. Donors had very few long-term health problems. In most cases, the study looked at almost 4,000 people who donated 1 or 2 of their kidneys since 1963. Their long-term survival rate was similar to non-donors, and they did not have an increased risk of kidney failure. Researchers at the University of Minnesota examined the long-term results for health diagnoses and cause of death. Living donation means that a living person donates a kidney to someone needing a transplant. The kidney donor survival was similar to that of general population when matched for age, sex, and race or ethnic group. Of 3,700 donors, the need for dialysis or transplant developed in only 11 donors, which is actually a lower rate than in the general population. Donors reported their quality of life was excellent. The only question that I would have for this is, and the researchers must have taken this into account, my guess is going to be that people that donate kidneys are already in exceptional health, because you probably have to be in pretty good health in order to go through that transplant. So I'm hoping that they're matching those people with other people in exceptional health. But this is just one thing that I'm reading right off the top of my head. Seems like it's not a bad thing, but...
Well, and also it doesn't matter with kidney, because on Suber, we're going to be allow you to donate not just kidneys, but also corneas, just everything that realistically you can donate. I think we're going to have listed on there. So, it's not just one thing, but let's use a more extreme example here of a cornea, right? As being able, as a living person, should we allow a living person to donate their cornea?
Wait, fuck, does that mean I won't be able to see out of one eye?
Yeah.
Fuck that shit. But I mean, if you wanted to, I guess, like, why wouldn't you? It seems weird to say no.
Or like, what else could you possibly donate?
I guess, like, I'm trying to imagine like a really poor person. So we obviously, assuming market forces are real, the prices of kidneys would probably fall if people started donating their kidneys, right? Because the market would probably be pretty flooded. But let's say, for instance, we take a really, really poor person whose life is pretty financially fucked, and this person has the opportunity to have a windfall of $100,000, assuming they're allowed to sell a kidney. How, like, do we really feel good depriving them of that? Because $100,000 is life-changing money, assuming it's, like, spent in a financially prudent way.
And it might be...
Yeah, go.
Think about the good it...
Yeah,
well,
go.
real quick, think about the good it might do also, keeping, like, not only that person, but their kids out of poverty. Like, you might literally, like, elevate an entire family out of poverty.
Okay, Pasta, go for it,
Pxie.
Pxie. Somebody sent me this comment. I have to verify it, but in 2001, a survey was conducted among 305 individuals who had sold a kidney in Chennai by a team of 4 doctors, and they listed the doctors. 96% of participants who sold their kidneys to pay off debts. The average amount receiving was $1,070. Most of the money received was spent on debts, food, and clothing, said a report titled Economic and Health Consequences of Selling a Kidney in India, published in the Journal of Emetic.
Ew, well, that sounds shitty. I don't know if I'd sell it for $1,000, but what was the, wait, can you link me this? Oh, wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Live kidney donation are concerns about long-term safety. Oh, this is just for... Wait, what was the thing you were saying? Oh, also, if you're in a really poor country, yeah, you're probably gonna get shit money. Although, I don't know, what is $1,000 in India? Is that like a significant amount of money? Is that like a year's salary or some shit? Or?
Yeah, that's
I don't
a lot
know.
of money.
Is it?
I don't think... I mean, in those outside areas, I think, yeah, that's like serious money. Don't they live on something ridiculous, like $2 a day or less?
Well, let's Google right now.
Annual salary, India median. Let's check.
Well, it's gonna be really very in like major cities versus anywhere outside of the major cities.
The annual median per capita income in India stood at $616. Wait, holy shit. So $1,000 is a little bit, is close to 2 years' salary. So that would be the equivalent. If we say the median per capita income United States, am I really reading that right? Hold on, I can't be reading that. The per capita income stood at $616. Annual median per capita, that's really right? Wait, that sounds insane. Is that really true?
I'm also reading a 2014 study that says that kidney donors are at an increased long-term risk for ESRD, cardiovascular, and all-cause mortality compared with a control group of non-donors.
Wait, do you have like
everything with kidneys? As I said, let's just will we let people sell their cornea? Like, fuck it, okay? Sell one of your eyes. You won't be able to see out an eye. Like, that's worse than any like kidney thing, right? Like, we're allowing you to literally. Well, this is another thing.
Yeah, but that's another thing. Like, you don't completely know the full long-term effects of the stuff to even begin with. That's another thing. Like, even though we're doing research, like, we don't know like the full.
You're cut off.
Taking out half your eye. We know blindness is one of them, like half blindness, but we don't know if that's going to affect. I don't like this is super random. It can be super inaccurate. But if it's going to somehow affect like brain function or how your brain sees reality because you only have half vision, and I know that like sounds far-fetched, but the point I'm trying to make here is that when selling organs, when we don't even have like complete 100% medical data on how this affects our body, seems very, very just like risky and unfair.
I think we have a very good idea of how donating certain things, how risky it is. I think we have statistics on that, and also how the quality of life works. But there's a lot of things you can donate. You know, as I said, you have corneas, you have kidneys, you have part of your liver which can grow back. You can have bone marrow transplants. I think you donate blood. We do that now. I mean, there's all sorts of crazy shit that you could literally match up.
I mean, I would argue that like
sure.
donating blood is like very different than like
why?
Why? Okay.
You regenerate blood really fast.
You regenerate part of your kidney, or not your kidney, your liver, if you cut off a piece of it.
Ignoring the complications that can happen with surgery, right? Just in general. maybe I could perhaps see an argument for some liver stuff, right? But the point is, like,
Sounds like a sex thing.
The process.
Are you into some liver stuff? Ugh. Sorry, go ahead. My bad. It's late for me. Go ahead.
Yeah, but the probability of you running into complications when it comes to, like, blood transfer, or, like, just taking out blood compared to literal surgery and taking out, like, organs is, like, just so radically different.
I have an interesting counterpoint to that then. So, let's assume that if you were to donate a portion of your liver, that 1 out of 1,000 people, like, die. But if you're getting paid for this, now you're elevating 999 people out of poverty. So
oh, and let's say what if we can look at like comorbidity for like people who are impoverished, and we compare like that to like the healthcare outcomes they already have. So for instance, let's say that people in poverty are 50% more likely to develop, say, type 2 diabetes because they don't have access to good food, and selling a kidney would help like 50% of people get out of poverty or whatever. When does the calculus become acceptable? Pxie, welcome to the utilitarian mind.
Okay, so you're asking me when it becomes acceptable to sell an organ or to sell something.
Well, so basically, like, all like factual basis aside, let's say that selling a kidney increased your chances of dying by like 1% or 2% or something. That for every 1,000 people that donate a kidney, maybe 10 of them die a little bit earlier or something. But let's say for half the people that do sell a kidney, they're able to significantly change like the trajectory of their life in terms of the amount of poverty they're in. Do you think at that point would it become worth it? Is it like an okay trade-off? Are people allowed to make that decision? It's like, yeah, sure, I'll do it, or no?
And their kids.
It's the coercive force of capital.
Yeah, no. So here's the thing: if we're talking about like in this specific hyperbolic chain, I'm totally like using random words here. But like, let's say in a parallel world where this is the only thing that would happen, then yeah, I could see an argument for that.
Fucking A, hell yeah, we got Pxie on fucking organ donating.
No.
Wait, but that's the case now. There's no difference.
No, there is a difference. Okay, for a couple of reasons here, right? When we have other methods that can, you know, provide even like a surplus of organ donation that doesn't involve like exploiting like poor people, I would say that we should take those actions.
It's not exploiting. It's not exploiting.
It is exploiting.
Oh my god, I can't.
That's the thing.
No, it's not. This is the whole Uber thing. The fact that I have put out there an offer, I will pay you to do this. Okay, that is not exploitative. That is someone saying, I would like to take you up on that deal. You can't say, like, even with prostitution, you can't say that. That's like someone you're trying to get in the middle of a transaction.
Well, the question is, wouldn't all sex work be exploitative then?
Yes.
Here's the thing.
Or is all labor exploitative? Sorry.
I was gonna say all wage labor is exploitative.
Yeah, no, I'm not making the argument that all transactions are exploitative. Okay. I'm making the argument that transactions that can lead to like pretty like severe like or like, you know, just like bodily harm in the long term can be like super exploitative, especially when they're it's not even like really a point of contention that having your liver removed or having like certain organs removed is going to lead to like a lower quality of life. Sex work, although you can make the argument of STIs, like it's not gonna happen every single time.
No, not STIs. Fuck it. STIs aren't a big deal. We're talking about like getting like raped or murdered or like abducted or something, or like sex trafficked or something.
I think a lot of liberals like try to like glorify sex work unnecessarily. So like we shouldn't be jerking off this type of work. It's pretty like pretty.
Well, of course we don't want to jerk off that type of work. If we jerked it off, then nobody'd be in business. I'm so sorry.
This is one of those things you just.
It's
don't
not
get
sex
into
negative. Look, if you want to be a sex worker, like that's totally fine, and that's your right. But like it is exploitative, and it's like it's a very.
Wait, how is sex work any more exploitative than like any type of normal work?
Yeah.
There's a lot of like shit that goes down behind scenes.
There's a lot of shit that goes down in any fucking service job behind scenes. Okay, listen.
You were just making the argument, Destiny. Though you were just making the argument that when it comes to sex work, you can get like raped or human trafficked, etc., etc.
Yeah, but that's why the pay is the pay.
The pay is shit for most sex workers. Most of the time it goes to your pimp or it goes to like whoever's running the freaking brothel.
Well, if you're paying a lot to your pimp, you're paying for good protection. No, or wait, okay, sure. For like porn it is, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know about
Okay.
sex work. I know that stripping pays like decently well, I think, from what I've heard.
It depends on what city you're in. Like,
Well, yeah, if you're stripping in like fucking Council Bluffs, Iowa or some shit, you're probably not gonna.
Isn't it supposed to
I mean,
be?
even like decently like popularized towns that like have like 6-figure like population sizes, like it's pretty. I don't know.
Like
Unless you're in like a big city, like maybe like Phoenix, like San Diego, San Francisco, LA.
Oh my god, you
New
know all the
York,
stripping
like,
spots? Is that?
Chicago?
He's seen them himself.
Isn't this literally based on the market rate? Like the whole idea is it's not exploitative because the idea is by being a prostitute, that's literally the most you could make. That was the best option. You as a person, you're like, fuck, I need to make money. What is the easiest and best and highest paying thing I could do? That's fucking someone for
Okay,
money.
you see, markets aren't perfect though, right?
I know
And
they're
a lot
not
of
perfect,
people
but
who
I think
are-
that. So
a
you're
lot of
saying they'd
people
be
are
better off if they.
prostitutes.
Wait, let her finish. Let her finish.
Yeah, a lot of people who are prostitutes, at least in America, don't do it by choice.
But that's
Now,
true
we
of
can
almost
all
labor, right?
Okay, yes and no, right?
Yes
Like when it
and
comes
yes.
to, well, yeah, yes and no, okay? Because let's say, like, for example, if you're a prostitute and you have like a pimp or something, there's like countless horror stories where it's like if you try to break away, they're going to like literally fucking beat you up, or they literally start trying to get you addicted to drugs, sometimes even forcibly, so you stay dependent and reliant on them.
Sure,
You're
but like
a
we're just talking.
owner isn't going to like force heroin down your veins.
We're
so-
talking about degrees of harm, though. Like, if I decide not to work at all and I don't work any service jobs and I like starve to death or I'm homeless, like that's pretty shit as well, right? Maybe my manager's not gonna beat the shit out of me, but like, it just seems weird to say that like, well, prostitution is bad because these people have like no other choice or something like that. When like, well, I mean, they could just not be prostitutes, right? And you could be homeless or starve the same way as any type of wage labor in this like system, right?
Well,
I think a lot of people. Oh, sorry, Pixie, go ahead.
Okay, I'll say this and then so the point is that a lot of people who choose like prostitution, like although you could be like, oh, they can just decide not to be prostitutes, right? That's not like necessarily true because of the cycles of abuse many of them tend to be in to begin with.
Yeah, but that's
right?
true of wage. God damn it.
I mean, would you say it's true for like, I guess,
Yes,
like people
that
working
like
jobs?
when you start working a service job, for instance, if you get like a family or some dumb shit, you can get trapped into that cycle forever. Of course, of any type of labor, sure.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
not like you have a person like repeatedly, possibly physically abusing you or putting your life on, like,
Your
you know,
boss.
threatening to kill you.
Wait, we've done,
I think like
so
so like it might be a little bit worse. So firstly, I guess I'd have to look into it. I don't believe that like if a prostitute was just like, okay, I'm fucking done being a prostitute, that every single one is gonna have like all their pimps like chasing them and keep working, right? Like normally I think that has to do with like is the prostitute like actually paying the pimp or working like well, or right, is she scamming her or whatever, or some shit like that. But like even if that was true, like the only difference is that like a pimp might hurt you versus you might be homeless if you don't like work, right? Like both of these are like pretty measurable amounts of harm, right?
Yeah, but the point is that like when it comes to, I guess, like abusive situations like that, they kind of I don't say completely dilute because that's not like the best wording, but they really fuck with your ability to think like rationally. They really like fuck with your ability to find other points of employment, right? To find things that you might consider better or more like economically like logical for you, because you are in that like.
Sure, but
more,
do you
like,
think that
mental
because some people
space.
might get a bad like cut doing it, that like everybody should be banned from doing it? Like, is that like a good compromise?
So that's why like I was like originally going to argue for the whole idea that we should like legalize this because it could and severely like I guess like limit that exploitation part of it, even though it is still exploitative. Now you're saying why can't we do the same thing when it comes to organs, right? And that's where it goes back to the whole idea that when it comes to like prostitution, like or not like yeah, I guess having sex every time isn't necessarily going to or having sex once or twice or 3 or 4 or 5 times isn't going to necessarily lead to an STI and long-term effects, but having an organ removed will.
I'd like to, if we could just, I want to go back. So, Pixie, do you think that it's good for the government to tell poor people that they can't do certain things that rich people can?
What do you mean by that rich people can?
So so like rich people essentially find ways to get organ donations, right? And poor people.
I'm
let me rephrase this. Are you okay with the government getting in between transactions and saying, sorry, you're not smart enough, I'm not allowing you to do this? Because it sounds like you're okay with keeping people from
Wait, well, Dan, you are, because you're against the legalization of all drugs, Dan. Didn't you say the same thing about, like, legalizing heroin?
I said with these things that would cause me a harm. Yeah.
Well, so that's the government getting in front of people's, like, ability to make decisions, right?
Let me think about this, because I don't think that this is the same. One is preventing two willing people from creating a transaction, and it doesn't cause a negative. And the other one...
Well, but Pxie's whole argument is that it can cause a negative, right?
Yeah, but I don't think that's the case. If you make the assumption that, even using kidneys as an example, that 1%, and I think that's a very, very high number based on what we read, that 1% of kidney transplants go bad, how many people would get elevated out of poverty if they had 100 or 200K? Why would the government want to stop this? This is literally an option that people don't have right now. It seems like...
I think you messed up in your premise. That's not just like the operation going bad. It's just that even if the operation goes well, just having one kidney has long-term...
Wait, Pxie, why is the title of your stream Nazi Hose?
Because I like clickbaity titles and seeing who's going to jump in.
That's not the right kind of clickbait.
Holy shit! Okay, I was just curious if your account was like getting hacked or some shit, but okay.
No, I put
at least make it like punching Nazi hose or something.
Jesus.
Fine,
okay.
I'll
that's all right.
Real
you can be another person that Mike
here.
attacks me for associating with. So I like it.
I can't stand this type of stuff when the government wants to essentially...
well, then why do you want, like, heroin to be illegal? I feel like it's the same type of argument.
Because one of these things has just a net negative across the board.
That's not true. Heroin is a lot of fun to do for some people.
Oh my... Well, I mean,
that's true.
Killing people is fun for a lot of people.
No, killing people...
Wait,
usually,
why? You're saying it's not fun?
Killing people involves a non-consensual activity involving a person. Doing drugs is just a person deciding to do drugs. They can harm themselves. Much the same way that you can donate a kidney for money, you could do a drug for fun.
They harm other people because when you get on drugs, your life goes down the fucking...
Oh my god, you're making my mom's fucking argument for fucking marijuana.
Wait a second. Are you saying how many people that start
meth that's fine. So you're saying that the government should get in front of you for this transaction because maybe it'll harm your life.
That elevates people. Yes.
Yeah, heroin elevates people too. You're ignoring the fact that some people genuinely enjoy doing heroin, of course.
That's a very
you laughing it off, but like very clearly, like people enjoy doing heroin. There's a joy to that. There's
people like doing heroin, but they cause harm to other people as a result of that.
Heroin doesn't cause harm to anybody but yourself.
Okay, so what is most crime that we have now? It's drug related.
Oh my god. We have it illegal to like rob and steal from people. If somebody does that, then we fucking prosecute them. Just the same way. So do you want to make drinking illegal because a lot of people that drink and drive? Like
yeah, I think I'm fine with
brother.
Prohibition,
Dan. Let's go.
You don't think
Prohibition,
DUI should be illegal?
No, DUIs are good, but we don't make it a crime just to drink alcohol because that could have a bad outcome, right?
I mean, I think to a certain extent, there's something to be said for banning cigarettes and banning alcohol. Yeah, I think realistically said, or a very heavy tax as a result. I think that's fine to have. I think the government should tax things. It doesn't want to have... Now, if you wanted to say that there would be a tax, and that could be a way for doing it, then maybe I could get behind that. Having a tax on fentanyl or heroin that would be so high that only responsible usage could happen as a result, then yeah, I think I'm okay with that. Sure.
Dan, ignoring the contradictions that you're having between this and the whole thing of Oregon...
No. I think I just explained that with a tax.
Pxie going out on the offense.
No.
Ignoring
I think I've explained that with a tax. No, ignoring what?
Okay,
I think I'm fine taxing it, just like we could tax these organ donations. So not ignoring that, I've explained how I feel on drugs. I've clarified it. Thank you, Stephen.
Why did she get to dash again? It's so stupid.
You're really wrong in the whole presumption that criminalizing drugs leads to less drug usage. That has been studied like constantly. If you want, you can go on my Discord and see like all the studies I posted there about it. That is just a false basis.
No, you're completely wrong. Completely wrong across the board. There's nothing in this statement that you're right. So you think that making something illegal makes it more common than making it legal?
No, we're talking about we're talking about.
You can't just appeal to common sense or logic on that.
Of course I can. Of course I can.
No,
it's so apparent and obvious.
Wait, what's apparent and obvious?
Literally all the studies like tell you otherwise, right? And here's the thing. Here's the reason why. Drugs most of all are a mental health issue, okay? People don't just wake up one day and it's like, you know what sounds cool, I'm gonna go take some heroin, when they have completely functional, happy, like, not most people, not all, but most, okay? Most people don't just decide one day and think, today I'm gonna just do some heroin, why not? Usually what ends up before you take hardcore drugs like that, and what's been like studied over and over, is that there's underlying mental conditions that sometimes if you cure these mental conditions to begin with, these people don't end up taking said drugs or easier.
What does that have to do with what I'm talking about?
So here's the thing, a person who is suffering mental illness doesn't think, oh, let's see the long-term side effects of me maybe going to jail, right?
What does that have to do with what I'm talking about? You said the drugs would be more common if they were illegal than if they were legal, and I said that is so completely wrong. So let's go to that.
Well, no, when we look at, tell me if you think this or not, right? With your logic, places that have stricter crimes when it comes to drugs would have less drug usage. Yes or no?
Wait, say that again. What?
Just answer me this question. If with your logic, places that have stricter laws on using drugs would have less drug usage.
I know where you're coming with this, but that stupid fucking Panama thing, and that's different.
No, I'm not even talking about Panama. I'm talking about just the United States of America. Just in the U.S. alone, the 50 states. Places that have stronger sentencing.
I'm not talking about the penalty. This is not fair. It's a mischaracterization of my argument. I never said that, going to jail for 100 years versus 5 would reduce or increase smoking weed. But, be realistically, yeah, if you got caught smoking weed, you went to jail for 100 years all across the states, I think that people would be much more cautious with doing it. So, yes, I think it would actually.
Okay.
Wait a minute. Hold the fucking phone. If tomorrow, mandatory 100-year sentences for fucking smoking weed, you think it's going to stay the same? Get the fuck out of here.
Here's the thing, Dan. Here's the thing, Dan, right? All the data we have right now that talks about states that have harsher drug usage, when we look at if those states and the amount of crimes people commit drug related to that, they tend to be the same or even more than states that have lesser punishments for it.
So you mean the liberal states that are educated and tend to pass this are going to be doing better than the shit states like Alabama that are in poverty, everyone's doing it? Color me fucking shocked.
Not just liberal educated states. Right?
Message me when Alabama passes the fucking free weed for everyone regulation.
We're making comparisons between poor states as well, right?
Poor states have fucking done this to this level and had it been.
I'm not just saying full on legalized. I'm just saying generally states that have less. I'm not even talking about states that have decriminalized. I'm just saying states that have less penalties than states that have harsher penalties, or states that have harsher penalties than states that have less penalties tend to have the same or more usage of drug-related crimes. So here's the deal. Why does that happen?
This is talking about the level of punishment, which I don't know why you keep pushing this, because
you just said that larger punishments result in deterrence.
I was using an example, which I think is true. Because I'm using a hypothetical to exaggerate. Of course it is. If it was fucking execution, if you smoked pot, less people would smoke pot.
That's the thing.
Any takers on that not being true? That's the thing? More people are going to smoke pot? Fuck yeah, I could possibly get killed? No.
Okay, with that logic, Prohibition would have worked, my dude.
It did work.
It didn't work.
To the extent that, of course it did. Less people drank. There was less product available.
Prohibition. Okay,
yes.
No, the black market freaking exploded.
No, it didn't. This is so completely false with a Prohibition.
Wait, hold on. My understanding was that it did so much. There was so much activity around it that we actually ended up repealing that amendment. That didn't happen out of nowhere, no?
No, it did, but that's because hold the fucking phone. The amount of distilleries that went into action when the Prohibition was fucking ended was unfucking real compared to where it was beforehand. And for you guys to say in here that something being the argument to this right here is that if something is illegal, that there is going to be more usage than when it's legal. We're not talking about how much the punishment is, if it's 1 year versus 10 or nothing. If it's legal versus illegal. If something is legal, there is going to be more usage than illegal. That is the fucking fact.
Well, why can't we just bring up? I don't think that happened.
All the facts tell you the opposite.
No,
if you look
you're
at countries that decriminalized, punishment, right? You're arguing that if it's illegal, if there's punishment, then the usage will go down. And literally, all the data we have about that says the opposite. That this punishment doesn't really affect it.
No,
yeah,
that's
I literally
not
have
true.
it on my Discord.
Because if that was the case, taxes would fucking be an infinite spiral up. We are taxing
Wait, why not just like look? Why not just go look up the numbers for Colorado or something that legalized weed and stop arguing about it? Why not instead? Because you're both arguing over numbers. We can just look up to see if they're real or not. Just take like a 2-minute breather.
Yeah,
go look it up.
Yeah. There was something I was gonna say about it as well. Other than I know the facts are on my side. Other than that, okay, fuck, I can't remember now. Brain fart. I'll just bring it up later when I remember. Oh yeah. How about this? How about we take into consideration this? Not all products are the same. Not all illegal activity is the same, right? And when it comes to drugs, most of the time, as I said before, it's related to like mental health issues and like, you know, mental illness. So yeah, people are not exactly the most like logical thinkers when they're freaking addicted, right? Or when they don't see the complete like
Do you have
long
a statistic on that?
this.
As far as like how many people that commit like drug-related crimes are like mentally ill or whatever?
Not committing drug-related crimes, but taking drugs in general. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, drug users. Yeah.
Yeah,
I would love to see that stat because I don't know if I feel comfortable like labeling like all drug users as like mentally ill.
It's not necessarily all drug users, but like here, I'll just send you. Well, yeah, I'll just send you the whole stuff. It's like heavily correlated. It's not perfectly correlated.
Yeah. Well, I would say even more like socioeconomic factors and environmental factors like play a much bigger role, I think, than mental.
Like drug abuse by itself is also already classified as mental illness.
Well, careful, because that's like a catch. You're like begging the question there, right? If you say all drug abusers are mentally ill, and you say one of the ways we determine people are mentally ill is because they use drugs, that's not really fair,
it's
right?
More.
I would like to propose something for you.
Wait, let her answer that real quick, because I challenge her position.
So basically, like, I guess like my counter argument to that is that it's not like a catch-all, right? Which is what I was trying to say. But when it comes to like mental illness in general and like drug abuse, the whole thing of like drug abuse is in its fact is not just taking the drug, but it's also the mental and physical effects your body has because of the drug, right? So it no longer becomes like, oh, you know, you're mentally ill just because you're taking the drug. It's because the drug you're taking has these very like strong effects on your mind and leads to like addiction and et cetera, but honestly I don't think I phrased my point completely correctly. What I was trying to say is that most people who tend to take drugs or who fall into the pattern of drug abuse have been mental like underlying illnesses beforehand that go into like this drug addiction to begin with, because it's usually done in what is it called, self-medication.
Wait, what? Hold on, no. We should get numbers for these types of arguments.
Okay, yeah, I'll send the same things I sent to Mindwaves to you.
So this first link talks about how common drug usage is for different people suffering from like different mental illnesses, right?
Yeah, it's been some time since I've gone through them, but then if you look at the second link, it like further explains the stuff. Just give me a second to send you everything. Since I'm sending you everything from my Discord, I'm also just sending stuff about like the war on drugs and the whole thing about like the myth about being put to jail or decriminalization criminalization leads to less drug usage. So if you just see random links there, that's like, oh, that's not exactly related to mental.
Nice.
So someone put this here. I'm gonna link this again in chat here. This is interesting. So this shows that drug use increased from, let's see, so this went from 5% to 15. So this is a threefold increase What age group is this one? It looks like a 2 to 3-fold usage increase in Colorado from when it was legalized to when it wasn't.
Yeah, that's the legal population. And when you look at people who are underage, it decreased. So yeah, it makes more sense that I guess
so more people are doing drugs. Because I thought we were just talking about how if it was legal, less people were going to be doing drugs.
Well, the point is that you can put. I
mean, we can change the goal if you want. But
okay,
stop paying me.
I'm talking about specific. From my argument is usually in favor of decriminalization, not exactly legalization. So maybe I'm not.
Well, this seems not that enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, look. Would you be okay with me? Well, where's your line with fentanyl or opium or morphine or Vicodin? What about those things? Can those be
decriminalized?
Legal?
No,
yeah.
For me it's decriminalized. That's my stance. Decriminalization.
I would say legalize it, dude. Fuck it.
Oh, so
like
not legalized.
At least people know that they're getting like clean drugs and not fucking shit that's like gonna kill them after the first time they inject, right?
So you don't want it legal to be able to buy and sell it. So those people who are trying to make money on the corner buying and selling and it's their only option.
No. You see, it's legal if you decriminalize it. It becomes legal to buy. But not legal to sell.
So you're okay with those people who are struggling to get by to support their kids selling drugs? You're okay with them going to jail then?
No. Okay, there's a couple layers here, right?
Sure.
The majority of time, it's not necessarily people just struggling to survive, etc., etc. A lot of time, or maybe you can make the argument for there. But
wait, hold on, Pxie. You just say yes to that. Just own that one. That's fine. If there's people that are trying to pay for their kids to survive and they do it by robbing banks, then yeah, you're comfortable putting those people in jail. If you think that drugs should be illegal, that the sale of drugs should be illegal, then even if people are supporting their family by selling drugs, then yeah, of course.
Okay, I'll own it then.
Sure.
Yeah,
fuck that.
All right. So we want more. I guess those would be minority peoples that are poor. You want more of them in jail then, just to be clear.
More minority people are being put to jail for taking the drug. Okay.
I mean, it's probably 99% minority poor people that are in jail for selling drugs. So just wanted to be clear that that's what you're in favor for here.
Oh my God! Please, are you memeing?
I mean, I believe that's a fact we're going for.
Ideally, if you want to stop the sale of drugs, and if you want to stop the sale of drugs, you try to stop the market for it, right? And how do you successfully stop the market for it?
I know. You grow it 3 times by making it legal, right?
No, that's why I say decriminalization. Holy shit! There's a difference there.
So you make it legal to do it, and then you put everyone who tries to make money doing it in jail? That sounds basically like what we have here, except the users get off free. You know
why it makes a difference, right? Because when you destigmatize the use of drugs, what ends up happening is that you end up having people who are more comfortable getting the help they need, right? When you decriminalize the usage of drugs, you have less people in jail who, once they're in jail, the chances of them getting what is it called? I can't pronounce words.
Reintegrated?
Well, the chance of them getting reintegrated in society becomes almost none, right? The chances of them going back to jail increases exponentially, right? So you stop so many things that basically prevent people from getting better. If you throw somebody in jail for drug use, chances are when they get out of jail, they're not going to be able to find a job. They're not going to be able to find a proper program to be in, and they're just going to either end up back into drug usage or end up in other crimes to be able to support themselves and live their life, right? So how do you solve this drug problem? You basically make it more focused on mental health issue. Why are these people taking drugs to begin with? A lot of times, not all the times, it's because they have an underlying mental illness that needs to be addressed.
Fucking citation.
Yeah, so
I'll send you everything as well.
Wait, not everything. Hold on. So what is the study? What is the one thing or whatever study that points to the fact that when people do drugs, it's just because of mental health? I don't think it's fair to just Well, but this is a pretty big. That's a kind of Weasley, right? A lot. I'm curious.
I can't find the statistic in any of the links that you sent me, Pxie, and that's what I've been looking for.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing.
Here, it's in one of the first 2. Give me a second if you want me to find the specific thing.
I think the real meme here is that we're trying to find one solution, whether it be decriminalizing or legalizing drugs or whatever, or I guess as Pxie said, treating it as a mental health issue. But it's like a number of different issues that we need to tackle to solve the drug problem, right? Like I would say obviously we need to at the very least decriminalize, if not legalize. I would say legalize, but I don't know. I guess there's like conversation to be had there. And then there's also a problem of like education, problem of like access to healthcare and like people with mental illnesses, like Pxie is pointing out. Socioeconomic factors as well, like play a huge role in like whether or not somebody's susceptible to like starting drug use or not. So I mean, I don't know.
What the fuck is this guy doing? I'm gonna die. Oh, we just lose now. Dude, we would have won all these fights if Rengar would have just coordinated us a little bit better, but he just keeps like running in and literally fucking inting. Like he can't just like fucking like ping or something, like let us know that he's about to go fucking suicide.
Getting back to what matters here. Suber. I don't understand give one fact I'm going to do here. I'm going to peg the price that a person can get paid for a kidney at $100,000, because that makes this stuff a lot easier, just to have a static price saying it's gonna at least be worth that. If you're willing to accept that you can get paid $100,000 for a kidney, wouldn't the option of opening this up, and for now let's just do it just kidneys, wouldn't the option of opening this up to poor people vastly be better than what they have right now, is no option of getting paid as a result and having to turn to other things? The outcomes of donating a kidney are essentially marginal at best, with like you have a better chance of dying in a car accident than you do as a result of this happening.
It's
so
not
that's
just dying, it's after
okay,
effects.
But there is none. We've looked this up on stream.
There's some which are minimal, and then
less than just driving the bus. Basically, you have a better chance of something else in your life happening. So what is a more likely chance of happening? You having some serious effect from this kidney operation, or like your life being totally shit because you didn't get $100,000?
I mean, you're basically arguing that like if people, you're arguing that people should be able to have like a lower quality of life for the long term if they're poor, like because they can still.
Yeah, I think people should have autonomy over their bodies.
Except when it comes to drugs.
No, I don't think that we should have autonomy for them to sell them. We regulate a lot of things. So
Hey, so Dan, you're trying to come out with a real strong statement, like I think people should have autonomy over their bodies. And you're like, what about drugs? Okay, wow.
Because I'm sure that she's like really in favor of abortion.
You don't know that, Pxie. Can you do me a big favor? Whenever you challenge Dan in a position, can you please say like, well, I'm super curious about this. Okay.
Hey, without the super curious thing, okay, that doesn't work on me. That fucking shit.
Well, I'm super curious why you're okay with like banning drugs, but not with.
I'm taxing drugs. And why am I okay with taxing drugs? Because it's a net benefit for society as a whole. It creates more tax revenue. It makes the world better. It paves my roads, and it has less people killing themselves or fucking their lives over. So that's why I'm okay with taxing that.
If you have info about like how decriminalizing drugs leads to less people being in jail.
Yeah, there you go, Colorado. That's your argument though, not mine.
Well, no, but
Colorado
I'm
didn't decriminalize; they legalized.
Oh, sorry. Sure. I'm in favor of not. Wait, I'm trying to think of how to say this. So decriminalizing is when you can sell it under some legal guidelines. I'm for that to an extent, as well as legalization. So I think, for instance, if we want to go to a certain level, things like, so we have prescriptions right now, right? So you're only supposed to be able to get fentanyl or any antibiotic or whatever the fuck it is with a prescription as a result of that. And we're okay with doctors basically saying, hey, don't, this is what it has to be because you might kill yourself if you just buy it otherwise. So we're basically saying, hey, well, this one makes you feel good, so we're going to get rid of that legislation.
The real meme is the 100,000 people in the U.S. that are on like the kidney donor list right now waiting for a kidney that are going to die without getting one.
So don't you guys think that if you're interested in like those people's lives, shouldn't we just have automatic kidney donation after a person dies?
Yeah, but that still probably wouldn't take care of every person, right? But like, let's say, I mean, if it did, then that would be moot. But if it didn't, would we still like deprive them of a kidney if somebody wanted to sell them one?
Wait, no, but sorry, I kind of like blanked out on your second statement.
Let's say that it wouldn't address. Let's say that you take care of 50,000 people, then, right? Like, what about the other 50,000? If they wanted to buy one, should they be allowed to, or?
I think it actually might solve the problem completely.
Well, but let's say that it didn't have that. If it did solve the problem completely,
okay.
then sure, we wouldn't have this conversation. But like, let's say it didn't. Would it be okay then for people to?
I would still say no, but I need a second to like gather all the thoughts again.
I would actually say that having people, I would be in favor of that not being allowed and only allowing a market of living donations as a result, because of the net positive it creates by
God damn it, Dan! Why do you have to go so extreme? I'm super curious why you're so okay. I'm sorry. Are you having fun, Pxie?
Yes, I am.
Okay, that's the only important part here, okay? So we're creating a net good for your enjoyment.
I like fighting with people. Arguing. Fighting sounds so mean.
Amen, brother.
Okay. Sorry to like bring this up again. I don't know if I was like completely clear. I might be getting confused with words. There's a difference between like drug abuse and drug use, right? And I'm specifically talking about drug abuse.
What forms of using fentanyl recreationally do you think would fall under use versus abuse? I believe it's the most addictive drug that there is. Meaning, once you've taken it, I would say a large percentage of people must continue to take it.
Well, yeah, I would argue that
everything around their life. Meth is another good example of this. Is that most people who try meth are very interested in trying it a second time. Once you've tried it a second time, you're super curious about trying it a third time. So what do you think about those things?
I definitely think that there's some substances that the first time you use them or whatever, it does fall into like substance abuse because of like that super high potent like addictive quality. That doesn't mean all of them are like that, right? So although weed can be addictive, not all the time it is addictive.
So for the sake of argument, let's say there's a new drug called Seth, and Seth is the most addictive drug ever, but it's fucking awesome. It's a lot of fun. But man, once you try this shit, you have to try it again. Once you're on Seth, man, you can't get off of Seth. That's it. Are you in favor of people being able to legally purchase Seth or legally consume Seth?
Well, I think that they should like decriminalization, right? So they can legally use it, because we know that throwing them to jail is just probably going to lead to them either using it in jail, right? Because there's still drug use in jail, or still using them outside of jail, right? I don't think that like it fixes the problem of addiction by just having them in jail.
Sure. So I'm going to do two extreme hypotheticals to kind of illustrate.
Hey, Steven. Steven.
What's up?
Hey, what's up, Steven?
We're in the middle of a fucking conversation, Greek. God damn.
Hey, how you doing, Steven? What rank are you, Steven?
Fucking platinum or some shit right now.
Platinum? What universe are we in, Steven?
The preseason one where I haven't played this game in a long fucking time. Why, what's up?
Oh, okay. Well, just checking on you, Steven.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it, mate.
Hey, no problem, mate.
All right, Greek. All drugs. Do you want to criminalize them, decriminalize them, or legalize them?
Decriminalize them, man.
Nice.
You do what that one country did, is they decriminalized them, and then they helped people instead of prisoning them.
Portugal?
That's the one. It worked for them.
Nice, good meme. Right answer.
Thanks, man.
Biggest fucking meme of them all, Portugal. It's like the fucking Mondragon for socialists, I swear to God.
You just don't like it because there's too many brown people, Dan. Calm down.
Wait,
People,
what?
Careful, you're talking to a non-white person when you say that, okay?
Yeah.
Whoa, why we gotta bring
what?
race into this, Steven?
Dan is
Fucking-
Jewish.
I always knew Mindwaves was a fucking disgusting
Why would we
anti-Semitic
bring race into this, man?
According to the alt-right, Jewish people are not white. Okay, I watch enough Nick Fuentes to know that, so...
All right, fair enough.
Everybody's the same.
Are they Greek?
Yes, they are. A human is a human.
What about a trans person? Are they human? I love you,
Oh
Greek.
my goodness.
There he goes, another 30-day break for Greek boys.
Wait, I didn't say nothing.
What?
You was the ones that said something, mate. I just said, oh my goodness.
Just kidding, buddy. How you doing? What have you been up to lately? Have you been streaming?
Nope. I've got an infection that I'm fighting right now.
Oh yeah, shit, you were in the hospital. Did you actually have like a surgery? What happened?
No, I didn't have a surgery, but I had an infection in my testicles.
What kind of infection was it?
I'm not quite sure, dude. It's like I can't remember what it's called. Just Google infection in testicles. Is that one?
Okay. Is it serious? Are you okay?
I mean, it doesn't feel too good now.
I mean, like, you're not expected to have to get like an amputation or anything removed or anything, right?
No, I hope not. Because it's my balls, mate. I need those.
Well, you only need one, technically. We were just talking about that, kind of.
Greek,
I
do you
mean,
think
what happens
that
if you don't have balls?
Greek.
Then what?
This is very important.
You
Greek.
lose your testosterone.
Do you think that poor people should be able to sell their organs? Like an Uber for organs. Like if you're poor, should you be able to just go and list your kidney and take some tests and get $100,000?
Ooh. Do you think you should have control over your consciences and your body? Is that what you're trying to say?
No, I'm trying to say if you should be able to sell your kidney.
Yeah, but that means you'd have full control of your body, right? You could do whatever you want, sell it.
However you want to get there, that's up to you. Do you think you should be able to do that?
I don't know, to be honest.
We don't really
Probably not, to be honest. You shouldn't be able to do that.
Good guy Greek over here. Amen, brother.
What else should the
Even though
government tell you?
you
This
should
is
have
why
full-
we broke away from the fucking UK in the first place. All the too much government regulation coming in there. We want to be free in America. The right to do stupid shit and be able to do it.
Yeah,
This is bullshit.
but you need to also have what's it called? You should also, like, you don't know if somebody's got mental health problems, and you should have care.
Sure. So what about if you could do screening before you get in? So whenever you want to go sell your organ, you have to go take a battery of tests. They make sure it's all good and make sure that you're not crazy, that you understand the risks. Then are you okay?
I mean, how do you know if somebody's mentally ill? They could pass a screening. And
Well,
be
kind of like how we
mentally
would like screen for like guns, I guess.
ill. Yeah, but people get shot all the time because they give guns to the wrong people.
Fucking idiot, Sona. Why the fuck would you suicide like that? Oh god, I'm so fucking triggered right now. These lanes have been so bad. Oh, it's just a stupid fucking way to die.
Screening doesn't really work because you screen people. For
Okay,
guns,
better
but still
screening.
shoot people.
Super the best screening, Greek. I'm telling
Okay.
you, we have a magic test to see if you're crazy.
But why
or
are we
not.
doing hypotheticals then?
Because that's what we do on Destiny's channel. We do hypotheticals.
I don't do hypotheticals. Sorry.
I think the real problem here is that you're allowing corporations to like make money off of poor people selling their organs because they're trying to escape poverty. I think that's pretty immoral in and of itself.
Listen, we're connecting buyers and sellers. That's it. It is a amoral business that we are.
Some
If any-
transactions can be moral and some cannot. I don't think
False.
that there's a
All
contradiction. there.
transactions are inherently innocent and amoral.
Unless the transaction is to buy
Liberal
fentanyl.
brain. Jesus.
Hey, that can
Oh,
be
it's
taxed.
crazy.
I didn't say it was immoral. All right.
Oh,
Stop.
so you're okay for legalizing all drugs?
Oh yeah, no,
As
no.
long as you tax it.
I
Thank
am.
you.
Yeah. Yes, with the
I'm
But
glad.
proportional
can you
level
argue
taxes.
that if you tax them like a high enough rate or whatever, that basically like defeats the point because people will just go back to the black market?
Well, then the black, yeah, but that would be.
So yeah, so it doesn't really decentivize anything. People just go back to the other market.
Wait,
yeah, that
people
would
are
be
saying
illegal.
that you could say this about all wage labor. Yeah, of course. I would make the same argument against all wage labor as well. I'm a socialist, guys. Big surprise. Like, okay.
Wait, no, I'm fine with that. Yeah, if you get pushed to the black market, you go to jail. Like that's the case for like so many things in America. Anyway.
But that's the point. That the whole, well, at least when it comes to drugs specifically.
So are
like,
you in favor of guns being legal across the board, or would you flip a switch and have them all removed?
Flip a switch and have them all
ideally,
removed.
Yeah,
ideally, ideally, I would have guns removed. Realistically,
Oh,
I
but then
know
they're
that's
just gonna
not
go to the
effective
black
policy.
market, though. What the fuck?
Yeah, like I said, there's like that's why I said effective. Like that's why I said there's a difference between ideal and practicality, right? Practicality, like practically speaking, I know that's like the not best way to actually like curb gun violence necessarily, right?
Well, no, I disagree. The best way to curb gun violence is to not have guns.
Well, ideally, right?
I guarantee you, if you banned guns, gun violence would go down.
Depends on where.
No, it
right?
doesn't. It doesn't
yes,
depend.
Yes, it does. Because you have places like for example, I think it's Chicago or Detroit who have extremely.
We make things illegal, and somehow they become more prevalent than are illegal. That's not the case.
Wait, Mexico has a ban on guns, and like they have a lot of.
Mexico is okay, yeah, and maybe if it was legal, they would have even more. I mean, you can't really say that. That's a nonsense thing to say. You're saying Mexico has a gun problem. Sure. Maybe it would be way worse if it was legal, though. Then what you just said has no relevance to what we're talking about. We're saying if something would be more exasperated being legal versus illegal. Saying, well,
I thought your original claim was that if you got rid of guns, there'd be like close to no gun.
No, I said there'd be less gun violence.
Oh.
There would. If you just started confiscating guns, slowly you would get rid of them.
Yeah.
I really like depends on. It depends on so many freaking factors, right?
I don't think it depends on any factors. As you reduce
yes,
guns,
it does. Because if you're, for example, let's take Mexico, for example, right?
Okay, sure.
That has like a bunch of like illegal cartels that are already prone to doing illegal things and don't give a fuck about the law. Okay, in that case, whether you have the guns completely like legal or illegal, you're still going to have these criminals that are still going to be doing these things, right? So then the question doesn't become necessarily like, or it does become, how do you curb gun violence? And the answer to that situation might be, you curb gun violence there not by making the guns completely illegal, but you do it by trying to find ways to shut down these cartels, right?
So your argument is because this wouldn't solve all gun problems immediately, we shouldn't do it? Getting rid of all guns in Mexico, sure, some cartels are still going to have it, but what about the people that weren't in cartels? They wouldn't.
Well, I hate this argument because I'm going to be making a fucking Republican talking point. But then, like,
yeah, you are. This is where
I'm a dirty
shit falls apart.
I'm being a dirty grifter, whatever. But then what about people who might have like needed those guns like for self-defense or shit like that, right?
Well, they would have less chance of dying with less guns in the country. So by virtue of that, it would be because people who are you're more likely to die by you're more likely to die by a handgun if you have one. So shit, that's kind of fucked.
Well, okay, yeah, it does. Yeah, no, you're right about that. That when it comes to at least like gun violence in America, despite the conversation is heavily skewed towards like a robber, for example, trying to rob you, than people committing suicide via guns and stuff like that. But the argument that
I'd like to address something really quickly. Dan, are you saying the state should get in the way of gun sales? Nope. I think you should tax them. Tax them so only that the wealthy people or people who really want to spend the money can have it. Just like machine guns.
You just want only the wealthy people to have access to everything.
It's a proven capitalistic, fair way.
You want wealthy people to have access to organs over poor people? You want them to have access to guns over poor people?
Listen, it's the only guaranteed way to make sure, to a large degree,
I think you have a horse in this race, honestly. I don't know. I feel like you're motivated by something here.
Do you think poor people commit most crime?
Poor people commit more crime.
Rich people
I'm
commit
aware
more
of
crime.
Is it because they're poor people's skulls, Dan? Is that?
Yeah, no. They're more likely. Okay, they're more likely, I guess, to be convicted of more crime, as well as, I guess, maybe even commit. I have to do more research on that. But mostly because they're in poor circumstances, right? So yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't understand.
If you could flip a switch tomorrow and all poor people couldn't have a gun anymore, like you could just flip a switch and all these guns, every single person who made less than like $100 grand a year would have their guns evaporate in front of them. Would that be a good thing?
Well, here's the thing. Like, yeah, ideally nobody would ever have guns, but the reality
but we're not talking about nobody. We're just talking about poor people. If you could flip that switch tomorrow and have it happen, would you do it?
Ideally, yes. Ideally, I wouldn't want anybody to have guns.
With you. Oh no, I didn't say everyone. I said just poor people.
Okay, for me, poor people and rich people, nobody would have guns. Period.
Okay, but that's not what I'm asking
okay,
here.
Yeah. But you're okay. See, this is what you're trying to do. You're trying to like shoehole me to like this one position, just poor people. And to me, it's not just poor people. Like it would
poor
be
people
everyone.
commit. Where's the gun statistic? I'm gonna say 95% of violence, meaning not killing themselves, which is another issue to go through, but of killing other people. It's in fact it might even be higher than that.
So wouldn't the answer here not to be to create like a hierarchy of rights, but rather to like tackle the issue of poverty instead?
That'd be good.
I don't. You're literally creating like a hierarchy here by saying only like
that capitalistic
rich
hierarchy
people.
literally works. Yes, that's what we do.
Wait,
that's
Dan,
what we do today for machine guns. That's what
Dan,
we do today
can I ask
for
you a
all
question?
sorts of things. Sure.
Are you saying that poor people do all the crime and rich people don't? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
No, I said poor
that's
people
another
do most
thing.
crime.
Oh, okay.
There's also just more poor people in general, right?
No, stop. Per capita, poor people absolutely commit more violent crime than wealthy people. Stop.
Okay,
That's
okay,
but that's a
you're
per
right, you're
capita.
right.
That's true. Controlling for everything else. That's true. There's no. That
Yeah,
should
but-
be almost
yeah, but
self-evident.
how do you know that rich people aren't just getting away with it because they have money?
Because the conditions probably don't exist for rich people to want to commit crime as much as poor people.
And there's less rich people too, so how can you say that?
We're talking per capita even. If you adjust on a per capita, if you control for
per
every 100
capita.
rich people and every 100 poor people.
Oh, per capita. Okay.
I mean, but I think like you know, you can always like go back to the argument like, oh, why is anything illegal if people are gonna commit it anyways? Blah 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 blah. Like, why are we making like murder illegal?
Well,
if
that's
people
your
are gonna
argument
commit
here,
murder?
right?
No, I'm trying to explain something, Dan. Let me finish, please. But to me, like the answer is that yeah, we should make certain things illegal if making them illegal actually leads to like less of that stuff happening, right?
Amen.
But there's certain things where that doesn't apply, sadly, right? Where we are, you know, our logical ideals don't translate well to reality.
Like
Drugs happens to be one of those things.
But all the data we've looked at shows that it does do that.
I literally just linked you like a shit ton of data. Like, please, click on it. Read it.
Oh,
Hey Dan,
my God. Yeah.
do you wanna ban all black people from owning guns though?
That's a really good question. That's a very interesting question to ask right here. So if you could flip that, actually, I would propose that to everyone in here. If tomorrow you could flip a switch and all people who are black could no longer have their guns evaporated, would you do it?
Wait, would I target black people specifically?
Yes, exactly that. If
Nope,
you could flip the
never.
switch,
Nope.
well, then you are actually causing more black people to die as a result of your decision. What you just did
wow.
No, wait. Is something I just said wrong?
We should take black people's rights away from them to
No,
protect
I didn't say.
black
I didn't say
people.
that. I didn't say
Amen,
that they
brother.
couldn't. I didn't say they couldn't buy another gun. I said
Ignore
if you
these
could
dumb
flip a
fuckers
switch
talking
right
right now, chat. They're
and have
not
it so that
worthy
all
of your
black people
attention.
no longer had a weapon, would you
Listen
do
to
it?
me.
You said no.
If Destiny hates
If I
nationalism
could
so
flip the
much, why do
switch
we
and
fight
take
DGG
away your
and
freedom of
Twitch
speech,
chat?
Dan, I would do it.
We're brothers in arms. Just kidding. Fuck Twitch chat. Ducker Z.
You wouldn't do this either, right? Like
I'm
if
sorry,
you were
Jack.
like the say we live under like a fucking a monarch and you're the king, and tomorrow you have the decision to like ban all black people from like having guns. Would you really do that, Dan? Honestly, like don't mean.
I didn't say to ban. We were talking about destroying the guns, but it's a question of harm, right? So, what's your goal when doing this type of thing? Is your goal to reduce gun violence? If so, the obvious answer would be to any way you can get guns off would be good. No?
Okay, but
But you're saying, oh, it's not
so
fair.
yeah, but
I
you
agree, it's not
are
fair.
trying to
It's
reduce
racist.
you're trying to reduce gun violence by taking a right away from a already subjugated group of people and therefore taking their rights away. Don't you think that like that's not a good trade-off?
What do you think? Is it a good trade-off? That's his question.
No, I mean, it's a good question to ask, but the thing is, I'm not the arbiter of this issue. Saying, is it fair? We put a lot of value on gun rights as a society. If the question was only, if you tomorrow took away all guns from black people, would be there less gun violence? Of course the answer. It would be the same thing if you asked me if you took it away from white people, there'd be less gun violence.
Yeah,
That's a non sequitur.
it
The
might,
question is, is it worth it
you
to
might
do
end
that?
up with less gun violence, but
The
I'm not
question is
comfortable
if
making
it's-
that trade-off.
Yeah, sure. Okay, that's fine, and that's something.
I don't think you should be either. I don't think anybody should be.
I didn't say that I was. I said that it should be a tax, because a tax is not a racist thing as a result of it. A tax is what we have in place for many things.
Well, I mean, if it negatively impacts poor people more than rich people, which it would, I mean,
poor people.
Wait, taxes can be
by
racist
nature of that,
taxes.
you're going to be like disproportionately affecting black people at the end of the day, regardless.
Yeah, but I think that happens across the board. There's millions of things poor people can't do that rich people can.
Okay, so you have an issue with poverty then, not with
I
like.
don't think people should be poor. I'm absolutely. If you thought that was the case, you're wrong. I wish there was.
Well,
more.
no, but you're okay.
So why
with
would
rich
you
people having more privileges than poor people?
Why would you scapegoat the issue of poverty to like justify a tax on firearms? I don't.
Because I would say that people who are more desperate as a result of this commit more crimes. That's why I think, like, unironically, who was it, Chris Rock, that said that there should be a bullet tax where every bullet has a price to it. I think there's something to be said for that type of stuff. I mean, if every bullet is worth $100, hypothetically, you know, you're going to be at this point where you're considering selling ammunition versus committing a crime.
I think this is completely regressive.
Why?
No, this doesn't make sense.
Because
It
being able to
makes
buy ammunition, I have no problem with that, and I'm like extremely anti-gun. Not that I want to like get rid of the Second Amendment or whatever, but like I think it should be like heavily restricted, right? But the issue isn't people's like ability to buy ammunition. The problem is their ability to access and own firearms without having to like prove themselves competent or even able to like safely own a gun.
You're not going to find a disagreement with me on that. I think I argued on your
show so then, like,
that there should be more regulation on this. Absolutely.
Okay, but then the solution that you're proposing is like very haphazard, right? Like you're not tackling the real issue here. You're trying to like
no, because you're saying it's not fair, and life isn't fair. I think that if you want to have
we should try to make it fair, no?
Hold on. I think that if you want to have a machine gun, which is a leisurely thing to have, you know, disregard the whole right to bear arms type of thing that we might have in the Constitution. But if you want to have a machine gun, there is a very inherent tax that you need to pay as a result of that. Owning a machine gun is expensive across the board. Poor people, for the most part, do not own machine guns. Okay? If they do, they are serious fucking criminals. Or they're very wealthy criminals as a result of this. Because owning a machine gun has a tax you have to pay yearly, and the guns themselves cost a lot of money. This seems like a fine solution to me. This is something that we want to discourage in the country, so it is very aggressively taxed as a result of that. I don't see why we shouldn't apply that to other things that the government feels is bad for the people and wants to reduce as a result of it. That is the responsibility of the government, to reduce harm of its citizens to a certain extent. It wants to keep them healthy, wants to have them live long, make babies, and grow the tax basis as a result of the machine.
I feel like there's a super huge contradiction between what you're saying, right? Because you want to
Ask
reduce
Dan
crime,
to stop being
right?
poor and move to Monaco. All his
So your
problems
argument
solved.
to reduce crime is to make things legal, but have a really high tax on them, right?
Yes. Well,
But then if you have
not like when you say really high, I mean within reason. I think people that
what's
are
within reason? Like only rich people.
I'm glad that you asked. Not only rich people that are statistically unlikely, for instance, to rob a gas station. I think that would, if you can afford a gun to a point, whatever that level is.
What demographic would that be, Dan?
What are you talking about? That's just an example I'm giving here.
No, I'm sorry. I'm so confused.
Sure.
Can you please try explaining it to me? When you say statistically...
Okay, so let's say hypothetically that every time you buy a gun, there would be $1,000 transfer tax. In that transfer tax could go towards low-income education programs.
Okay. So you're saying like we should... When I'm so confused, why not just only have this tax for like super rich people instead of poor people? Because if you have this
we want to discourage people who are desperate from having weapons.
But that's the thing. If people are desperate from having weapons and they're already likely to commit illegal crimes, if you have a super high tax or a really high tax, they'll just go to the black market.
Okay, so real quick. So I think what we okay, so Pxie, for in some ways you're right, but you're not acknowledging that there is going to be some negation of the amount of people that can procure a firearm as a result of making them harder to obtain, right? So, for instance, Oh my god, of course that hit. So like you keep saying, for instance, like people can just go to the black market. The black market by definition is going to be more expensive than what's here legally. That's the reason why the black market doesn't sell them, right? If a black market is opening up around something, it's because you've made it harder to acquire legally, and it's usually more expensive than the legal means would be otherwise. Right? So like some amount of people, there are going to be some criminals that will acquire guns regardless, but that amount of people that acquire them is going to be necessarily lower, right? Otherwise they would be getting them now anyway, right?
Yeah, but I have like another question here. So to me, when we're talking about things like gun violence in specific, right, when it comes to things like, I don't know, robbing a store or like murdering someone, I feel like maybe I'm wrong, maybe I have to do more research, maybe you guys can explain more to me, but these people who are going to commit like violent, illegal crimes like this, are probably going to be under the same demographics who would be willing to buy an illegal firearm to begin with.
Not necessarily, because we know, for instance, like the people that commit violent crimes, for instance, are more likely to be like poor people, right? So if it's more likely to be poor people and you prevent poor people from acquiring these firearms, then you're less likely to have them legally acquiring the means to commit these violent crimes. I think earlier you were pointing out something about Chicago. Even though firearms are illegal there, people still acquire them there. Even though they acquired them illegally there, that's because people originally sourced them from areas outside of Chicago. I want to say it's something like 60% of firearms that are acquired from like gang people, like that are illegally acquired in Chicago, can be traced back to like a few gun stores, like just a few cities away. So I mean, like, yeah.
I was never able to like complete this argument, but yeah, I was actually gonna go around there, and that's why I said different places, different things, because if you made, I would argue, like, since what do we have, like a ridiculous amount of guns. I want to say like millions.
Over
like,
300 million firearms in the United States right now.
Like almost more than people, right?
More than people right now.
More than
people. So unlike, let's say, the UK, where people are like, oh, don't you see the UK like banned guns there? There's like less gun crime, etc., etc. That's like an island that already had like less like gun usage to begin with. When you have the United States and such a large amount of firearms, I don't believe a blanket ban would be a very effective solution, just because there's already so much in circulation.
So we're not talking about a solution, right? A blanket ban wouldn't be a solution. It would just hopefully curb it. So, like, even if we did a huge ban and gun violence still occur, the idea would be that the amount of gun violence that occurs would be less than what it would occur anyway. Okay, everybody chill. Okay, Dan and Pxie, right? I'll moderate between you two, okay? Because you guys are... Okay, so let's return. Tell me what the points you guys were originally arguing were. Go.
What, with drugs, organs, or guns?
Organs.
Okay, let's do organs. Go.
Should I lead? I think that a service to... I think we should allow individuals, under certain exceptions, to be able to sell their organs. And I would concede that those concessions would probably be meeting with a psychologist or a psychiatrist, taking tests, health tests, yada, 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 before you do it. But you should not be disqualified simply for being poor. And I think that you should be able to sell organs within reason. Obviously, no one's expecting you to like sell both of your eyes. No one's like, that shouldn't be allowed. But, you know, realistically, should you be able to sell one cornea if you understand the risk and the payment is acceptable and under some mandated things? I think the answer is yes to that, and I think that it causes it would cause a greater good to allow this than to disallow it. Go ahead. Under the current system.
Sorry, give me a second. I'm apparently unlisted. Great, beautiful. So here's a couple of things. I guess if you make a somehow beautiful, wonderful exception that the person is like paid so significantly, right? Like, let's say $5 million. That can also not just significantly improve their quality of life, but take care of any medical expenses that can come after selling the risk of the organ. Then perhaps I can see an argument like that. But are we talking about ideals or practical? Let's be clear here. Like, if this system was going to be practically put into place. Just want to make that clear. What are we arguing for, Dan?
I think that it should be able to exist today. I think that would be fine.
Okay, so let's talk about a practical system like this existing. You have
wait. Let's settle the theoretical. So the simplified version is Dan is saying that with a background check similar to what we would demand for, say, a gun check or maybe for adopting a child, okay, that we have some process in society where we do a mental background check on people, okay? Let's say that we do a background check like this, okay? Let's say that, oh my god, my mind just, I'm fucking reading 12 different things. We do a background check, declare somebody mentally competent. They sell an organ for some sum of money. Dan says that this should be a transaction that we allow in society. Are you for or against that, Pxie?
The only way I could possibly be for that is if the price is so like ridiculously high that it could basically guarantee that whatever possible side effect that can come afterwards can be like basically like taken care of medically. And yeah.
Well, you can't always take care of that.
Wait.
Guaranteed.
So basically what I'm trying to say, right, is that when you do like this donation, right? When you're doing like this surgery, this transaction or whatever.
Well, let's just use it for kidneys for now to make it simple.
Wait. We don't need to go off into any other things. So let's say that theoretically, even if it wasn't, by what measure would you tell a person you're not allowed to engage in that transaction? Why would you say, no, you shouldn't do that, even if there isn't like adequate payoff or whatever?
Okay. I'm trying to think of how to word this properly. Simply, and I know your counter arguments will just like come at it, I guess, because it is extremely exploitative, to the sense that we know that just like these surgeries in general, will have long-term effects. Even if minimal, we know for a fact that there will be said long-term effects.
Okay,
citation needed.
Okay, stop. Okay, wait. We're not. This isn't a citation, okay? Because we're just doing like deductive argumentation right now. Okay, we're not going to make any empirical appeals yet. Okay, so Pxie, your argument would be something along the lines of like these transactions would be unethical because they'd be almost necessarily predatory, the same way that payday loans, for instance, are predatory. That the only people that would take these, assuming the payoff isn't adequate, would be people that shouldn't be taking them anyway, right?
Yes.
Okay, so then you would agree then that if the payoff was substantial enough to outweigh any negatives, right? If there was a positive expected value with the transaction, meaning that on average, the sum of money delivered to the person selling the organ is going to be greater than the sum of money paid for any incurred medical fees, that if that were true, you would think that this transaction would be ethical, yeah?
Yes, but like it has to be like ridiculously high, right?
Like,
so that
wait, why ridiculously high? Like at what level? What do you mean by that?
Okay, why ridiculously high? Because I feel like it would still be under like exploitative level if it was like, let's say just your salary for a year, for example.
What about 100K?
Wait, hold on. I can do this without being fucking crazy, okay? Just hold on, and then I'll go to you, Dan, okay? What do you mean when you say ridiculously high? Quantify that for me. Like, it has to exceed like 5 times the... So here, let's say, for instance, that the average medical expense incurred by a person doing this, that 1 out of every 100 people incurred $10,000 in debt. Okay, 1 out of every 100 people. So that your expected value in this transaction, the expected liability per person is $100, right, on average. What would you say here? Like, what type of payoff should they be looking for if the expected liability is $100 per person? What is ridiculously high to you?
What's ridiculously... Okay, I would basically say that there's a couple things that you need. The payoff would have to be higher, obviously, like higher than the medical cost, right?
Sure.
It would have to be higher. Like higher than the...
So let's say, okay, I'll throw a number out. Let's say that we're paying $20,000 for this, and 1 out of 100 people incur a $10,000 medical debt, right? So that means that 1 out of 100 people will only make $10,000. The other people will just make an easy 20 grand and experience no side effects. Is that ridiculously high enough that it's 2 times the 1% chance of incurring a $10,000 cost, or is that not high enough?
I would argue that at least in America's system, that is not high enough because... if there is a complication that comes afterwards.
No. I'm saying that all of that. I'm just saying the overall cost, just to keep it really simple. The overall cost is just going to be not like there's not any other cancer crazy complication afterwards. Like that's it. That's the overall cost.
Well, I guess like I don't mean to like pivot. I don't mean to be like trying to like weasel or whatever. But I just honestly mean this. Like, how do you quantify, I guess, quality of life in that sense, right? Where somebody's life can be like permanently like kind of affected by this, even if it's just like a little bit. Like how is that? I guess like that's like my biggest contention there. Like I'm not sure how you would be able to like properly quantify that. That's why I said ridiculously high. Because, like,
well,
assuming that's even
you're the one that
quantifiable to begin with.
Well, we have to make these types of choices all the time in society. How do you quantify how happy somebody is if they go to college enough to work a different job to earn enough money? Like, I mean, we have to make these decisions all the time, right?
Yes, but that's where, like, multiple different arguments come here, right? And I would argue that, like, with college,
well, here's an easy one, for instance. Okay, so you can have greater peace of mind living on your own, but some people choose to have roommates. Almost everybody would prefer to live on their own, save for some rare exception. But a lot of people make the decision to have roommates because they save money. So that's a cost-benefit analysis that we're making there, where they say the liability of having a roommate is outweighed by the reduction in cost of living, right?
Yeah, but my argument there is, like, having roommates isn't going to maybe, like, and this is random shit, right? Like, these are just, like, completely random example stuff. Having a roommate isn't going to weaken your immune system possibly forever, right? Having a roommate isn't going to I don't know, like, affect your sense.
Okay, so your problem is, like, so because we can't figure out a way to weigh some of these, like, possible medical things, you just blanket ban all of this. Like, do you think it should be unethical, for instance, to have LASIK eye surgery, since some percentage of people could go blind forever? It's a very small percentage, but it's possible. Or should it be illegal to perform all forms of cosmetic surgery? Because, like, there are complications for rhinoplasties. That's a serious surgery. Like,
I guess, like, my argument to that is that we know there will always be an effect, even though, like, minimal, that's, like, just generally negative when it comes to organ when it comes to, like, organ transplants, etc., etc., etc. The same.
We know what? Say that again. Sorry.
We know there's always going to be an effect, even minimal.
No, that's not true. Or if you say that, like, when you say there's always going to be effect, even minimal, that's such a worthless thing. Like, that's true of literally every single thing you do in life, every piece of food you eat, like, we know that there are a lot of people that can have an organ transplant that will have no noticeable impact, like maybe shaving seconds off your life, but, like, the sizable chunk of people don't seem to have, or we'll say in this example, say that they wouldn't. I'm just saying that, like, when you say, like,
if in this example, okay, I'm sorry, like,
sure.
Maybe we read two different things, which I would like to see what you guys sent, please, or what you guys read, so I can, like, make sure like, I was reading the same stuff. But yeah, if there is no effect, right, or if the effect is, like, basically
only some people are impacted, basically, and that everybody else is more or less negligibly affected.
Okay, I guess, like, I don't want to get into empiricals right now, but from what I was reading, and maybe, like, what I was reading was different than you were reading.
Sure, so we don't care about the empirical yet. We're just trying to establish our theoretical foundation. We can't even start to address the empirical until we know what our theoretical positions are, right? Like, for instance, would it be right for a husband to act in self-defense against a woman attacking him? Well, I don't know. How strong is the woman? Like, we don't. That's like a whole other. We're not even at that point yet. Like, we're just completely in the realm of the theoretical. What is our philosophical or our ethical position? And then we can work with an empirical example. But we need a framework first, right?
Okay. Because, like, you were talking about how, like, oh, we know there's some negative effects when, like, there can be a possible negative effect when you eat food. But, like, you know, there's also a bunch of, like, shit ton of positive effects. But I was under the impression there was always a negative effect when you donate an organ. Like,
well, what do you mean by always a negative effect? Like, just,
I mean, there's nobody that's going to be able to donate an organ that has, like, a zero effect. Like, everybody will be affected.
When you say negative effect, like, just that them having to have surgery is like a negative effect, or?
I mean, like, afterwards, like, the quality of life.
Wait, you have to use, like, a real word. When you say quality of life, like, they're gonna have a shorter life expectancy, or they're gonna have renal failure, or they're gonna have, like, what do you mean by quality of life? Like, things
like that, yeah.
Okay. So let's assume that, like, most people don't have these issues, that these are limited to just, like, a few people.
Wait, sorry. Can you repeat that? I was reading a comment.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. So, like, let's assume that, like, there are going to be some of these negative effects, but these are limited to just a few people. It's not every single person that experiences this. It's just some small percentage of people.
Okay. Some small. If it was some small percentage of people, then yes, I can see an argument for it.
Okay. So if only a small percentage of people have, like, permanent, like, life-altering effects or whatever, then we would say...
Or have no effects. Like, they're not affected at all. Like,
that most people aren't affected, but some people are. right?
Yeah.
Then we would say that people should be allowed to weigh these risks on their own and make that judgment.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. All right. So we've established that if a small percentage of people have a negative outcome related to some elective surgery that you can go through for money, people should be allowed to evaluate and weigh that risk. I guess similar to how you would for like plastic surgery, cosmetic surgery, or like LASIK eye surgery, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now let's move on. Now let's move a little bit more theoretically closer to the pragmatic argument that you're getting at. Let's say that every single person that had this type of surgery, this type of sale, incurred varying levels of long-term harm. So maybe we'll say a statistically significant increase in the chance of kidney failure or cardiovascular disease or something. Should people have a right to weigh those risks and sell an organ or whatever if they choose to do so? Or do you think that should be impossible to do?
I don't think that should be possible to do.
Okay. And why not?
I don't think people can like accurately, completely like weigh those risks,
Mm-hmm.
especially if they're in circumstances of poverty where, you know, you might be kind of like thinking in like the short term,
Sure.
because you're kind of forced to, right? Like,
sure. So you would say
if
that like,
you
so you're essentially your argument. I'm just trying to make sure you have this real quick. Okay. So you're basically saying that somebody that is in a poor position, it doesn't really have the proper like framework to evaluate the long-term effectiveness of their decision because they might be like unhealthily incentivized towards like short-term decision making or something, basically, right?
Yes.
Okay. So in general, then you'd say that if there was some decision that you could make regarding your body and your health that would like is almost guaranteed to result in some sort of long-term harm to your body, you probably shouldn't be allowed to just ever really make that decision.
Yes.
Okay, so should poor people ever be allowed to make the decision to have children if you're a woman? Because pregnancies almost always result in some sort of like irreversible long-term changes to your body. And if so, what's the difference between that and selling an organ? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, well, here's the thing, right? You probably, like, and this goes, like, I'm sorry to go back to practical and ideal, but it's kind of true, and that's kind of what we were talking about, like, guns earlier, but I'm not going to pivot to that.
Mm-hmm.
Practically speaking, you can't stop people from having sex, right? You can't stop people from...
Sure, but we're just saying, like, ethically, like, should this be immoral?
Ethically speaking... Yeah, ethically speaking, I think that if you can't afford to have children, you shouldn't have children. However, practically speaking, I think that the moralities that can concur by the government stepping in and like sterilizing people and basically taking away like, I guess like 100% like bodily.
Sure, it's not just poor people having children, but just anybody making the decision to have children. Basically, whether you're poor or rich, you're basically like you're saying that people probably aren't equipped with the ability to like evaluate the long-term ramifications of doing something that have like long-term impacts, permanent impacts on your body, which childbirth for women tends to.
Well, no, I was trying to specify because poverty like kind of like incentivizes you and forces you to like think in a short state of mind because like kind of it's like survival mode. It destroys your possibility of actually weighing long-term effects. I don't think anybody is incapable of weighing long-term effects, right? Of anything. Like let's say a person like who's middle class who can afford a child, even if it has like negative effects on their body because they're not like in this very dire, straining mental situation. They can properly evaluate, like, well, do I really want to have a child? What are, like, the long-term effects of my body? Do you think I'm going to get a lot more happiness? Blah, 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 blah. But when most people, when they're in a poor state of mind, well, not when most people when they're poor, just because of, like, basic, like, survival 101, the idea of selling an organ at that second to be able to pay their bill before they cut out their electricity might be very incentivizing. However, you know, they're thinking about like, oh, it's incentivizing because I'm going to be able to pay my bill. They're not really thinking about like, holy shit, what are these long-term effects?
Hey, Pxie, mate, are you single?
What's the Greek? Why?
Oh, I was just asking.
At this moment, I am not dating anyone.
Nice.
So, would you say then that if we go back to our original organ thing, can we modify this slightly to say that you'd be okay with people selling organs, but poor people wouldn't be allowed to then?
Yeah, I would argue not just like poor people, but anybody whose like current situations can like decentivize them or make them incapable of making like completely rational financial decisions, right?
Sure. So we understand that. Okay, so like let's say then that we look at like the actual impact then of that, and let's say that if we play that out in society. Wait, hello?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
So let's say that we play that out in society, and the way that looks is, so your ethical position, well, let's pretend we're God and we can enforce perfect policy. Your ethical position would look something along the lines of like, if you're in too poor of a position, and let's say we can magically determine this, to where you might be like compromised, your ability to determine whether or not something is long-term good for you is compromised, you shouldn't be allowed to make the decision to sell an organ, right?
Yeah.
So let's say that we implement that policy, and that ends up being like no black people are allowed to do it because they tend to be in a much poorer position. That only white people basically are allowed to sell their organs, and black people are basically barred from this form of like financial gain.
Well, that's not true, right? Because like that, I guess, I don't know if I'm using this right. That's like correlation equals causation, right? Like.
Well, no. No.
A lot of black people that are.
But per capita, black people tend to be worse off socioeconomically than white people. We both agree with that.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's like saying, how do you call it? Like, if a person who's black is like middle class or like upper middle class or whatever, then they should be allowed to, you know?
Well, yeah, of course. But the net result of this is going to be that in general, more black people per capita are going to be disbarred from this type of financial gain than white people, just because more black people tend to be poor versus white people that tend to not be poor, right? It doesn't target black people, but that would be like the end result, basically. Kind of like when Dan earlier was saying that poor people should be kept from purchasing guns or buying ammo, and then either you or Mindwaves brought up that like, well, okay, in practice, this law would look pretty racist because it would disproportionately impact black people.
Yeah, I agree that. Yeah, I would agree that would unintentionally affect black people, but not because they're black.
Well, not because they're black, of course, but it just would have that impact, right? But couldn't we say the same thing then about your pregnancy take as well? So earlier you said that, and I'm not trying to nail you, can correct it or clarify, but earlier you said it's probably immoral to make the decision to have a child if you can't afford it because you're not capable of understanding the long-term ramifications, the same way that you can't for like selling an organ. Wouldn't this mean then that if we were God and we were applying this as a policy, we would say that most of the people that shouldn't be having children as a percentage of the population would be black people, that they shouldn't be the ones having kids because generally they're in a poorer socioeconomic position that precludes them from understanding the long-term ramifications of having a kid?
Well, yeah, ideally anybody who's poor wouldn't have children, right? Because they probably like get stuck in that cycle of poverty. But you know, ideally if I was God, I would also just like not have poverty and stuff.
Well, yeah, no, but that's not what we're asking.
Yeah, I know, but I guess like what I'm trying to say is that I feel like a lot of, and this is I guess like I know that debating can be sometimes for fun or whatever, but when I tend to think about like these conversations, I always want to like root them in practicality and like what will we see the real world effects of that. So yeah, so like ideally people who are poor wouldn't like have children because you know that cycle of poverty. Yes, this might disproportionately affect certain populations, but at the end of the day it's still like, you know, it still goes back to the whole idea that we shouldn't do things if in the long term we can't realize the full consequences and effects.
Sure. So the practicality comes after the theoretical because we need to have like our moral foundation by which to apply our practical lens through, right? We can't have a practical without a theoretical foundation first. So that's the only reason I'm trying to establish the theoretical. So like in terms of like a practical application of this, so like here's the thing that I say oftentimes on stream. I legitimately believe that credit cards are predatory, that all of them. I don't know if I even think credit cards should be legal, period. I think that they're highly predatory. I don't think that any intelligent person would use a credit card and carry a balance. I only use them because I cheat them for points. That's it. I would never, ever carry a balance on a credit card. But now when I say that, a good counter argument to me is credit cards allow poor people and middle-class people to acquire goods that they wouldn't be able to ordinarily because it provides them the liquidity they would never have ordinarily. So when I say I don't think credit cards should be legal, what I'm saying in effect is I want to cut off lower class and lower middle class people, many of whom are black, from having the same liquidity that upper class people are. And are you okay with that? That would be like a practical application of like our theoretical idea. And yeah, I mean, I think that these do have like real world implications that are worth thinking about. Or for instance, from a Republican point of view, something similar to what we're talking about with the pregnancy thing, a lot of Republicans, have you ever heard like the Black Holocaust meme about abortions?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
My dad uses that.
Yeah. Jesus, what a fucking age, zero skill fucking champ. Speaking of fucking abortions, Jesus. A lot of people say that like black people are being like shepherded into like the untold era of abortions. It's like a black genocide because they're basically the ones that end up getting abortions per capita more than white people. It's stuff that's definitely worth thinking about. It's not just something you can befuddle by, you know, saying like, oh, well, there's a lot of empirical stuff. Like even on a theoretical level, like this is hard stuff to deal with, I think.
So yeah, so I guess like to me, it's hard for me to like completely separate practical from ideal because
wait, why not?
Because right, like what you were talking about before, like we can have our ideal way of living, but sometimes despite like even though you logically think like, oh, then you know ideally we'd put these like things in place and then this would happen, sometimes the effects are the opposite or sometimes the effects are not.
Yeah, but oh, Jesus. Thank you, you fucking cuck. That's the type of abortion that we fucking need right now. The practical never will contradict your theoretical, right? You just sometimes the practical gets messy and we can't like apply like the perfectly clean like hypothetical or theoretical, but that doesn't mean that our theory is no good or is debunked. Like for instance, like you can't give me an example right now of how anything here like goes against our theoretical. Like the theoretical still completely applies here.
Well, I'm not sure. Like not to pivot like too harshly, but making like what the whole damn meme stuff, ideally making something illegal would stop people from using it.
Wait, I'm sorry, hold on.
And then
wait, I think you cut out a little bit when you said that. Can you explain that again, or what did you just say?
Ideally making something illegal would stop people from doing it.
Well, that's not a theoretical framework at all. That's like that's literally an empirical claim, right?
Okay, I see where you're coming from. Yeah. So I guess I'm three head or whatever. You're saying
don't say that.
So yeah, so you're saying like the whole thing about like the framework we're using isn't based on like, how do you call it? Isn't based on empirical at all?
No, yeah. For instance, yeah, our theoretical frameworks for any of these things should be purely deductive. And when I say deductive, I mean that just they're true by virtue of their own arguments.
I feel like it's very hard to create any argument, like, or I feel like it's kind of useless to create a whole like theoretical framework, if when you're trying to like translate into this into policy or into reality.
Well, the question is that if you don't have a theoretical framework, what does your practical thing draw from? How do you know what you're even aiming for with a practical? Like, give me some practical thing about like banning guns or whatever. Like, what are you aiming for? What are you even trying to do if you don't have a theoretical foundation behind it?
Okay, so can't we just like reduce this whole argument, if we like the whole argument from before about like organs and whatever, to whatever reduces harm?
Yeah, you're going for like yeah, so like your theoretical here is like whatever reduces harm is good. That's just like an axiom, I guess. That's not even like a framework, but yeah, sure. So we can have like this axiom that like reducing harm is good. Like it's just true by virtue of itself. Self-evident.
Okay, so yeah. So and we have like whatever reduces harm is good.
Sure, okay, yeah.
And then we have like the whole thing about like selling organs, and the argument here is like, if you allow people to sell organs, they can get out of poverty or something, or they can make money, and that helps them live life, right?
So we have an axiom, okay? Harm is bad, all right? Yeah. And then we can make a basic moral statement. We ought to reduce harm from that. If harm is bad, tautologically speaking, right? You're almost begging the question. We ought to reduce harm. If it's a bad thing, right? We should reduce bad things, right? So we can take a theoretical argument, okay? Or more theoretical. We're going to say that we should reduce actions in society that lead to harm. Right? So then another theoretical, right? So we would say that people voluntarily selling their organs, if that leads to harm, or if people voluntarily sell their organs, it leads to harm, we ought to reduce harm in society. Then deductively, so like we would say that like, okay, so like they shouldn't sell their organs, right? I guess that like the problem is that like this would be like our this is, I guess we're making empirical appeals already, because we would challenge one of these premises on whether or not that leads to reduction of harm. But without getting into like too deep of that, we have like a framework there that we can work with, right? You have to have that theoretical framework before you even begin talking about whether or not we're reducing harm or should reduce harm or whether or not like selling organs like leads to people, whatever, right? We need the theoretical framework first. Does that make sense? Or I'm mumbling a lot through that.
No, you're making sense.
Okay. But without that theoretical framework, we're just like talking about literally nothing, right?
Yeah, so I have a question to Dan, if he's still here.
What? Yeah.
Okay, so I have a question for you, Dan. Do you think exploitation leads to harm, or do you think exploitation is inherently harmful?
I think the definition of it is that it's harmful for one party.
Okay. So I have another question for you, and this might just end up being in something we agree to disagree on, right? Because you're saying it's harmful to one party, and we want to reduce harm in general, though, right?
Well, I disagree that allowing poor people to sell organs would be harmful.
We know it'll harm their body, no?
Yeah, but there's a lot of things that.
Well, so both of you agree that we should seek a greater overall reduction in harm. So the question, now we have all the theoretical gobbledygook out of the way. Okay, we're done with all that bullshit. All of us agree that we should reduce harm. So now all we have to do are investigate a couple of empirical claims, and then we can go back to a theoretical argument to how we weigh these harms against one another. So, for instance, both of you can agree that there's some harm caused by organ donating. We don't know how much, but we can agree that there's some harm caused by that. Yeah?
I would say it seems pretty minimal. At least
but that's okay. It doesn't matter. We're not talking about how much. But we all agree that there is some level of harm caused. Yes?
Sure.
Okay. We also all agree that there is some level of benefit or harm reduction caused. The person that donates the kidney gets some amount of money. He's compensated for it. The person that receives the kidney doesn't fucking die. Right? We both agree with that. Right? Okay, so then the claim rests, so since we have harm reduction on both sides, and since we have some level of harm being caused on one side, what we have to argue is the amount of harm that's being caused by a person donating the organ, is that person adequately compensated for the level of harm that they're enduring? Right? So we would say, for instance, like a person that gets LASIK eye surgery, there's a harm there and that there's some percentage chance that they'll go blind, but we'd say they're adequately compensated because they have informed consent when they make the decision and because they gain an increase in eyesight, right? So so over here, we need to ask one question, and that is, what is the level of harm that a kidney donor endures? And then we have to weigh that against the benefits to see how great do the benefits have to be for that reduction in harm to be overcome so that the benefits can be enjoyed by all parties, right?
Wait. I have one more thing.
Go.
If informed consent is, like, very pivotal to this, like, couldn't we also argue that, like, for this transaction to occur to begin with, we need informed consent on both parties?
Not necessarily, no. Informed consent doesn't always have to happen for a moral decision to be made.
It doesn't have to happen, but without, like, informed consent, I guess, like, oh, fuck, I don't know how to phrase this.
Real quick, this is what I'm going to say right after what you say, just so you know, before you stumble into an argument. So, informed consent is generally good, but we would argue in society there are some cases where we can actually override somebody's informed consent. For instance, we don't take the informed consent of children when we talk about things like vaccinations or medical procedures or whether or not they should go to school, right? We just override their autonomy and instantly we say, you can't do this or whatever, like we're going to make this decision for you. Or say when people drive vehicles, like we force them to, obey the rules of the road and whatever. They can't just do whatever they want. So there are some ways that we override people's autonomy, or that we make people like pay taxes even if they don't necessarily consent to them to exist in a society, etc. So you just be careful where you're going with that argument, because I'm going to pop up those counterexamples and say, well, we don't always need consent to like exist in a society, or we don't have to always have to agree with certain things. Okay, go for it.
Okay. No, because to me, like, I guess, like, my thing is that the whole thing about like, oh, is a harm less than the compensation or whatever? A person can't accurately weigh the compensation if they don't have the proper knowledge, right?
What do you mean by can't weigh the compensation? Like if you're getting a dollar amount, no?
Yeah, so this is going to sound like, I guess, like so snobby or whatever. But yeah, no, like I guess like, yeah, if you're a poor person, right, what we were talking about, like you're in a state of mind where you think where you're thinking short term because like for survival, right? How can you properly understand the long-term effects when your state of mind is like so focused on the short term? Because it has to be. Like, how can you have like an informed decision when you're like, I guess, economic circumstances are already fucking you over like so badly that basically makes it like impossible?
Well, there's two problems going on here. One, can't we as a third party like argue that, well, okay, we can see that the benefit is so great that we'll allow that person to make that decision regardless, even if they don't necessarily have 100% informed decision-making abilities, because we can evaluate as a society that it's so good? That's the first thing. Then secondly, can we argue that almost any decision a poor person makes can have long-term, like drastically negative impacts on them, and they should never be able to make those decisions? For instance, should any poor person ever be allowed to work any blue-collar job ever, when these can lead to like an increase in long-term health problems?
Well, yeah, I guess like that's something us like a society have to come to, right? And
well, but that's what I'm asking you, right?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I do think that there's certain situations where we should say like, no, like that's not like possible to begin with. For example, like even though I guess like we as, and this is, I'm going to go like full on practicality here, right? Like let's take for what we were talking about earlier, payday loans, right?
Sure.
That were like inherently predatory towards like Black people and towards like poor people that happen, you know what I mean? Like, so we can have the same thing here, that if we had a system like this in place where inherently, right, we're going to have like really high prices to begin with, or maybe not even, but we know the people who are going to be trying to pay for these programs are those that have money to begin with. Wouldn't you say that like they're going to like, this sounds like, I guess, like so pessimistic or whatever, get into these systems and try to like play them towards their advantage, or prey on like unknowing people or people who don't know very well, or not completely inform them of their effects? Because why would you want like a fully informed person if they might not pay, if they might not give their organ, or if they know the full effects, they might try to like argue for a higher price, you know? So I think like a system like this, where you already have such a big disbalance between like poor and rich people, it becomes like kind of an inherently predatory system, taking into consideration that
sure. So
like
whether or not the system, so whether or not the system is predatory, so it seems like we're going to have to retreat back to what we need to do an empirical investigation of, and that's, are these people adequately compensated for the risk they're taking? That seems to be the question that we need to ask, right? So, like for instance, let's say that we were to let's say we were going to say poor people could sell their kidneys, and every time a poor person sold a kidney, they got $10 million. Would you be in favor of that, even if they couldn't really adequately understand the long-term health effects? Or would you say they still shouldn't be allowed to do that if the government was literally giving $10 million to a poor person for a kidney?
This is like really complicated for me, because like,
you really think that's complicated? I feel like that's an easy yes, of course.
Yeah, my first instinct is an easy yes, right? Because like, even if the person even if the person doesn't understand the long-term effects, we do, and therefore like we know that that's like an adequate thing or whatever.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, the question isn't like what I think is like best for like
well, it is what you think. I'm asking what you think, right?
Yeah.
But I'm saying like, so it seems like the question is like, what we're really asking is like, is somebody adequately compensated for the risk that they're taking? And to find out compensation of risk, that risk is a calculation, right? So we need to find out like empirically, what is the harm of a kidney donation? So then we have to go back to the empirical evidence. So if we find out, for instance, 1 out of 100 people have a bad outcome, or every person has like some kind of bad outcome, so we have to figure out like, well, what's adequate compensation for this? And it's hard, but we can measure this in some way. Like we can go to extremes. If I were to offer you $100 to take off 1 year of your healthy lifespan, would you accept? Probably not. But if I were to offer you $10 million to take off 1 year of your healthy lifespan, you might accept. $10 million is a lot of money. You can do a lot of crazy shit with that. So we can probably meet somewhere in the middle where people would negotiate some price where they would say like, okay, yeah, like even though there might be some health impacts, like we can weigh this risk. My argument for that is that we do this already in a multitude of ways. For instance, we argue that the time saved by commuting to work via car is worth the risk of getting into a life-altering car accident, which a lot of people do. Not only that, we subject our children to the same risks as well, and they don't even consent to it. Or we make these same decisions when we eat bad food that's high in carbs, high in sugar. We eat these types of foods that reduce our healthy and our overall lifespan, but we do it because we believe that we're compensated for it because of the immediate joy of the foods we're eating, right?
Okay, well, this is where it goes back to, I guess, like, as well as, like, empirical data.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, out of my impression, out of what I read, and that's why I want to know what you guys read, there is never going to be net zero, right?
What do you mean
Now,
net zero?
When you drive a car,
Mm-hmm.
there is a chance you get into an accident. Yeah, there's totally a chance you get into an accident.
Mm-hmm.
However, there's going to be, like, a lot more chances, or most of the time, when you ride a car, there's not going to be an accident, right?
Sure.
And from what I read, from what I understood,
Mm-hmm.
When you do surgery, there's never like a net zero like that, you know?
Okay,
It's
so then
just-
let's all take 5 minutes. I'm sure your chat's been doing a lot of reading. I'm sure my chat's been doing a lot of reading. Let's see what are the risks of doing a kidney transplant or a kidney donation. Are there long-term negative impacts for all people involved? Or is it just some percentage of people? And then what are the long-term negative impacts? We can look at the empirical data right now, and then using the theoretical framework we've established, we can go to this empirical data and see what our argument looks like, given, or rather, how much compensation a person would need for the given harm that we can see is incurred by people that donate kidneys. Do you think? Okay.
Yeah.
Real quick, maybe
What?
I'm just fucking dumb, but couldn't you also argue that like a system that creates, or a system that even poses the question of like if you should create this exchange or engage in this exchange is like immoral in and of itself?
No, because in every system we live in, we have a scarcity of resources. We don't have infinite resources that we can allot to everybody. So we have to make these decisions at all points in time. We ration healthcare, we ration food, we ration services. Like all of this has to happen when we live in a society that has some degree of scarcity involved.
I feel like we shouldn't have to like ration our own organs though.
Well, where do you start?
I
You
don't
ration
know.
your body when you work for wages. You ration your health. When you work in environments that have like cigarette smoke. You ration your safety if you want to be a police officer, a firefighter, someone in the military. Like we already make these decisions like pretty often. Even in a socialist utopia, we would still make these decisions to some extent, unless you literally lived in a post-scarcity socialist utopia.
Well,
So
yeah, I
this
was gonna say that we should probably aim to like even reduce those, right? Because I guess even if like you are selling your body to some extent if you're working like a laborious job, and I think that we should I think it is immoral to like do so. I think we should like try to phase that out as well because of that reason.
Well, so like the reason why we don't try to reduce all forms of harm is because it seems like what we've decided in society is that we can incur some harms, and the harms that we incur give us such great benefits that it's actually worth.
Yeah, maybe.
Say as well. Sorry, Mindwave's really cutting in.
No, it's
but-
fine. I cut it.
Yeah, but this is, I guess, one more thing. If we found ways where there could be like no harm or almost no harm, and a great benefit to society, we should probably do those ways first before implementing this policy. Would you agree or disagree?
Yeah, sure. No harm is good. But like,
No harm
there is no
or
such thing
almost
as there
no
is
harm.
literally no such thing as no harm. Like everything we do incurs some level of harm. That's almost
Okay.
unavoidable. So, for instance, like we've decided, for instance, that the pollution that happens in the world, like that harm is worth all of the advantages that we get of industrialization. Or we acknowledge, for instance, that the harm that we incur by working, which we do, we incur some harm by working, that harm is worth it because we get like a place to live in, good quality food to eat, you know, more recreational activities. Because anybody could be homeless. And in America, you could be homeless and survive, like, and do okay, right? Better than you would even not homeless in a lot of third world countries. But we've decided that we incur some level of harm because it's worth it. When we go to higher educational institutions, you incur a great deal of harm by going to fucking class because fuck school. But we acknowledge that trade-off in harm is worth it because of the greater impacts later on in life, right?
Okay, because the reason why I said that, and I have to like find, I'm looking for it right now actually, is that I know, like, I think it's Denmark, but I'm not sure. It's like a Nordic country or something. It's in Europe, of course.
I hate this game.
Where they have where they have that basically everybody's registered to be an organ donor after they die. I think they even have like a surplus of organs, because it's been such an effective policy. So, you know, there is a possible chance that if we implemented that in the United States, everybody that became like an automatic like organ donor right after they died, basically means that there won't be like, oh,
yeah, this is not relevant
list.
to any of the argument that we've had at all, though. It's not totally relevant to everything.
Well, the reason why I was asking is because like the whole question about like harm or non-harm and stuff like that, would be like, if we want to have a society that reduces harm or almost has like no harm, then we should try to implement those policies first before selling organs.
Yeah, you could. That's a totally separate argument, though. If there's like a better way to, because this isn't a conversation about the best way to get rid of kidney requirements in the United States. That's not what we're talking about. This is a conversation about whether or not poor people should be allowed to sell their kidneys.
Yeah, because what I was gonna say is that like, if we have this other system in place, then yeah, poor people shouldn't be allowed to like sell their kidneys because we have this other system that has like almost no harm and no harm.
Wait, I can think of
Well, that's actually not necessarily true because you'd be forcing people that might not otherwise want to donate their kidneys to donate their kidneys. People could perceive that as some kind of harm.
Well, no, that's why you can it's an opt-out system, just like Denmark or whatever.
But opt-out systems are oftentimes not used by everybody that knows that there's an opt-out. That's the whole point. Anybody that's worked in online marketing or advertising knows that opt-outs are really used to get people that otherwise wouldn't opt into the system, right?
So do you think what?
That did not hit me.
Because I was going to say, like, I thought that for you, like, there's not any real harm or whatever after the person's dead because they're dead.
Well, that's in my case, but people that are living, there are people that are... So, okay, I'm curious, okay? Would you agree that if you had an opt-out system, that people would end up on that system that wouldn't want to be on that system, but just because it's opt-out, they would forget to opt out? Do you agree with that?
Okay. Yeah.
This is an easy yes. It's absolutely yes. It has to be. It did hit you, Destiny. I'll give you a blowjob. Gyno, clip it. I promise to God that did not hit me. That cue absolutely did not hit me. Not even fucking close to hitting me. 1,000,000,000% clip it, and we'll watch it together if you want. But yeah, so like, of course, like some level of harm is being created there. Some people would even argue that by doing an opt-out system, you're explicitly trying to entrap non-consenting people into your system, and that's actually less ethical than like getting people to sell organs for it.
Sorry, I'm tired. Is there anything else you need from me, or have you won this debate?
No, I'm trying to have the argument without pivoting all over the fucking place.
Oh, I'm sorry if my debate tactics are not fucking fluid enough for you. All right.
Okay, go ahead, Dan. Do you have anything you want to scream out at us?
I'm sorry for providing you interesting topics to talk about.
I love you, Dan. It's a great topic.
I had a fun time talking to you, even if I was a bitch.
Damn.
Yeah, you were kind of a bitch, but that's all right. No, I'm kidding. You're fine.
He's not kidding, by the way.
So
Dan is the Squad W lieutenant of my...
It's not true.
Okay. I'm sorry. Okay, what were you saying, Pxie?
Anyways, yeah, good night. And
good night, Dan. I love you so much.
Dan.
Yeah. Shit, I feel like going out on a high, but alright.
Going out high?
You don't get that later.
Alright, it's fine. Alright, I'll leave you in good hands. Have a good evening. Goodbye, folks.
Bye.
Bye. I'm trying to find like still data, I guess, because what I'm finding a lot is, oh, you can live a fairly normal life, or you can live a kind of normal life, and to me, like, I want to find like.
Hi, Andy.
Chill. Okay, sorry, what? Oh, live a fairly normal life.
Yeah, like to me, like I want to find like a clear, like I guess a clearer statement than that, because like. Do you understand like where I'm coming from, or am I just?
Yeah,
like,
I guess, but like
random
it seems
thoughts?
it kind of seems a little bit biased because like if you can live like a fairly normal life, it sounds like there's not like a major medical thing, but the cash transfer is very real. Like that fairly normal life seems to sound like pretty ambiguous, and that like the medical benefits aren't that massive. But if we were offering like a lump sum of like 100,000 for one of these organs, that's a life-changing amount of money for like a lower class or even middle lower class person, right?
So I guess like, I guess I'm just kind of confused, right? Because you guys were earlier talking about like let the market decide, and what if there's like a huge like surplus of poor people and like the market decides 1,000, right? Which isn't like very life-changing money.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say let the market decide, because we could probably agree that if the market was offering some premium that is not good, that we probably wouldn't want people to ever make said decision. So for instance, if the market was offering $100 for a kidney, chances are anybody that would agree to that transaction is not of sound mind to make that decision.
So I guess what value would you put?
I don't know. I think some number, I don't know, maybe like somewhere around like a year or two salary or whatever, maybe.
Do you think that it should also try to account for any future complication?
Well, that would be like guessing that the complications aren't too severe and are very rare. Then I would say like a year or two's salary probably like adequately compensates you. We could say that like maybe for like you could have like insurance on this stuff if you want to. So for instance, you take away 2% of every single person's compensation, and then you put that into like a contingency fund, and then if people have problems with these types of donations, and that contingency fund pays out like a type of insurance for it if you wanted to. I don't know. I'm only doing a 6-month lease. I'm almost guaranteed to be living in Austin in like 7 months from now. I'm almost positive that's what's gonna happen. $30,300.